Journalism and Communication. And our panel today is on Indigenous languages and communication rights. And while there have been conversations around Indigenous languages, there is not still enough conversation around communication rights. So our aspiration for this afternoon's conversation is to work through these two concepts and talk about where the gaps are on the ground for Indigenous people and their right to have a voice, as well as their right to equal and equitable information access. So we will also conduct this session bilingually. So please bear with us because we have panelists who speak only in Hindi. So I will try and moderate bilingually. So I will request your indulgence with that. So let's start. So मैं शुरुआत का जो मैंने कहा इंट्रोडक्शन कि हमारा पैनल जो है वो भाषा और संचार के अधिकार पर है, और इस पैनल में कोशिश हम करेंगे कि क्योंकि इंडिजिनस भाषाओं पर काफी चर्चा हुई है कि हम भाषाओं के साथ साथ संचार के अधिकार पर भी चर्चा हम कर सकें। इस पैनल में मेरा नाम वेणु है और मैं जिंदल स्कूल ऑफ जर्नलिज्म और कम्युनिकेशन में एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर ऑफ प्रैक्टिस हूँ, और मेरे साथ इस पैनल में 4 मुख्य अतिथि हैं। डॉक्टर सी मादेगौड़ा जो हमारे साथ ऑनलाइन जुड़े हैं। आई होप डॉक्टर मादेगौड़ा ऑनलाइन आ गए हैं। इज ही ऑनलाइन? हाँ, या डॉक्टर मादेगौड़ा सोशल साइंटिस्ट हैं और बिलीगिरी रंगास्वामी टेम्पल टाइगर रिजर्व में कर्नाटका में वो सोलिगा ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी के साथ काम करते हैं कई सालों से। वहीं पर उन्होंने अपनी पीएचडी भी की, और मीडिया और भाषा से जुड़ा हुआ उनका काम है। इस समय वो एट्री के साथ, अशोका ट्रस्ट फॉर रिसर्च एंड इकोलॉजिकल एनवायरनमेंट, एट्री के साथ क्लोजली इन्वॉल्व हैं। हमारे दूसरे पैनलिस्ट हैं मीरा देवी जो खबर लहरिया की मैनेजिंग एडिटर हैं। सॉरी इफ आई can do we have somebody who can do simultaneous translation, or should I do dual translations? Yeah, okay, great, okay. मीरा के अलावा रूम में कोई है जो केवल हिंदी बोलते हैं या हिंदी समझते हैं? मीरा के अलावा अगर कोई रूम में है जो केवल हिंदी बोलते हैं या समझते हैं? Okay, great. So then we can carry on. Yeah, thank you. So Meera is the managing editor of Khabar Lahariya. Many of you may have seen the recent film about Khabar Lahariya, and it is the only women-run brand of ethical and independent rural news. Meera has over 15 years of reporting experience on rural issues, and she specializes in investigative journalism and policy reporting. My third panelist is Bhaskar Bhuiya, and we will also have Rumi. Bhaskar is the station director of community radio Brahmaputra that operates in Assam, in Dibrugarh, and he's joined by his colleague Rumi, who is a reporter, and they will speak about probably the only community radio station in the country that broadcasts in 5 indigenous languages. And we have Stella Tamang. Many of you have heard her yesterday morning. Stella is on the board of Cultural Survival, and she belongs to the Tamang community from the mountain regions of Nepal. She has worked for several years towards inclusion of empowerment of Tamang indigenous communities, all indigenous communities across Nepal, especially women and girls. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon to have this conversation. The way I have thought of organizing the panel is that we will have 5 to 7 minutes for each speaker to talk to this issue of languages and communication rights, after which I will pose a few key questions emerging from that presentation, and we will go through the panelists, and then we will open it out for questions and conversations with all of you. So let me start with Dr. Madegowda. Dr. Madhagowda, if you can switch on your camera, if you're here.
Yes, madam.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Madhagowda, for joining. And I'm going to please start, and I'm going to share your presentation on my screen. So,
Okay, madam.
Dr. Madhagowda, over to you.
Okay, good afternoon, madam. Good afternoon to all. Thank you for inviting me to share some of the work we carried out in the BRT Tiger Reserve in Chamala district of Karnataka state. Basically, I am presenting the case study of the Soliga tribal community in Chamala district. The Soliga tribal communities are indigenous communities living in the BRT Tiger Reserve area and area, and also Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, some part of the area or Adivasi communities living, and also we have our communities, indigenous communities spread in around 148 settlements inside the forest area. Okay, next. Soliga tribal are living the better, and also we have 4 protected area. So basically, the Soliga, the indigenous communities in 4 protected area of Chamala district. One is BRT Tiger Reserve, another is Malay Madeshwara Wildlife Sanctuary, and also Bandipura Tiger Reserve, and also Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. These are the 4 protected area. Out of that, there are 2 tiger reserves. So now the government of India and government of Karnataka proposing one more protected area into tiger reserve. There is a Malay Madeshwara Wildlife Sanctuary, and also the indigenous communities living in this landscape are the 4 protected area. And we are living, I think we historically the indigenous communities living in the 800 BC. There is a megalithical burial site we found in the area. That is one of the story we have. And also the when Dr. Sudarshan started working with our Adivasi community in Chamala district, and we started the community-based organization called Soliga Abhiruddhi Sangha, and also Jilla Budakka Abhiruddhi Sangha. Through the Sangha, we I think NGOs are supporting the Ashoka Trust for Research, Ecology and Environment, and Vivekananda Girjana Kalyana Kendra also supported, and they are also supporting the community. And also the communities we took our the Soliga we took our voluntarily we are doing for welfare of the community that through the sanghas, and also we lot of issues based we work. So not only the focusing on we are focusing on the rights, the Parasite Act, and also other rights, and also we involved in the education, and also sometimes we work on the language because we are living we have our own dialect. Okay, next. And this is about the, so now I'm focusing on the Soliga. We have Soliga dialect called Soliga language. This is a little bit, we are using the Kannada as a language. And also Soliga using verbal and non-verbal communication. So we use communicating when we living in the forest area. We use the both thing because when we enter into the forest area, we should be very silent. And that time we using non-verbal communication. So we can't use the verbal communication. So that is the communication structure we have in the forest area. And also when we go to the forest area, we make many marking on the tree and also making the sound because we should not shout in the forest area. That is the communication we are using, the indigenous community. Marking on the tree, saying that I'm watched this way, so I'm moving this way, like that. And also making the sound. So making the different sound. The people are in different forest area, maybe 1 kilometer or half a kilometer nearby. So we make the sound. I'm here. So like that. So that is the communication we. And also when people are when we go 3 people or 4 people, 5 people in the forest area, So then we move different places for resource collection. Like our communities are collecting honey, gooseberry, and lichen, soap, and all these forest product. So in the forest area. So when they split it in the forest area, then we make sounds. And also when we move from the one place to another place by path, so we use the green leaves and put it on the path and showing that I am moved. Otherwise, I am here only, because that is the communication we have inside the forest area. That is and also we show the when green leaves were left put on the path and show the direction also. So that is the communication structure we have in the forest area. Next. And also we started, we have Soliga language. So the most of the Soliga language we don't have writing, and we are using as a Kannada, the state language is a writing for that. And also now, because language is very important for our Adivasi community, because now our students, our children are going for formal education, and they are learning different languages in the cities and town, and gradually they are losing the language, and they are more attract the mainstream languages. So that is the problem we are facing, and people are, because they are hesitant to talk in the colleges or universities, because we have different own languages. Some feeling we have our use. So gradually we thought that through the sanghas and the support of NGO, we want to people should speak the language. So our community should speak our language. That's called Soliga language. So like we celebrate different festival like a Roti Abba harvesting festival, and also the Ragi Abba, Saragi Abba. That's also harvesting festival. During that time we sing the songs. The songs all in the Soliga language. I can say there is a two words. You can see the language like Guru Guru Go Guru Kana, Guru Guru Ko Guru Kana, Guru Guru Ko Guru Kana, Dodda Sampage Namodaya, Katuka Padi Madagunaya, Katuka Padi Madagunaya, Guru Guru Ko Guru Kana, Guru Guru Ko Guru Kana. This is the song we have. So traditionally we have sing the song about the nature, bird, trees, like the sound from the evergreen caves. Guru Guru Kana, the sound from the evergreen forest. And also the spider making the sound. When we listen very carefully, we can observe the sound. And also making the dance. So that is the we are using. And recently we help up the Ansi. He came for a PhD, and with our community for this Soliga English dictionary. So he documented how people are using what are the words we are using for the forest flora, fauna. So all the we documented, and also he published the book and given to the Sangha, the community-based organization, through us. And now we are distributing to our community, because our community youth can understand, and also we are distributing to the tribal schools in our district. The people can go through the words and all things. That is one of the work we carried out. And also we conduct 3 months once meeting in our community, and also we discuss we have to preserve the language, and whenever we gather and we speak our own language. So that is we are encouraging our community to speak and continue our language. So that is another thing we are doing. And also all the festivals we use our own language. Yeah. Next. And I also conducted some of the studies how our communities, our community are using the media. So I think my study, I found that our community people are using the radio is a major role play. Around 39% of the people our community are using the radio, and TV maybe 2.4%. The minimum number of people are using the radio, and cinema maybe 0.5%. They're less than and our radio TV, they are using almost 28% of the community, and even I think radio, TV, cinema around 18%. And if you take the newspaper and media, so maybe almost 4.4. So I think people are using the newspaper media is very less, and people are using more radios. So that's we found my studies, I think there is no accessibility to the community to use some of the medias. Okay, next. And also why our people are using the how the influencing the media to the Soliga community. So radio is a major media people are using. It's always around 56% people are using the radio, and even sometime around 39%. I think only 4% people are using the radio. So I think almost 90% of the people using the radio. So radio is playing a very important role in the Soliga community. Community, and also TV are very people, because now people are getting very few people are almost 37% of the people are using, almost 70% of people are using the TV, because now that media came recently, and people don't have some areas electricity, and also they don't have a finance to get the TVs. So now, but still people are using the TV also, and also cinema. Very few percent of the people, maybe 19 to around 50% of the people go to cinemas and watch the cinema in the media. But almost 40% of people don't use they don't go to the watch the movies. And also newspaper. If you take newspaper, only I think around 21% of people are using the newspaper. So we have around 45,000 of Adivasi community in this landscape, and only 70% people don't use the media newspaper. So that media is not reaching to the community. Okay, next slide. What are the influential factors for the community? So I put just some of the slides saying that do interact with the community, interact with the hospital outside, all this helping outside of the factor. Basically, the media people are come, and we also use the media to whenever we do protest and some of the problem we face in the community. So media come and focus very few, not much focusing on the Adivasi communities, because I think we are excluded from the media. Whenever there is a sensitive issues there, and there is a very few time we focus. So most of the time the Adivasi community is not focused by the media, because I think they have maybe they have a different priority for that. So, but somehow we are using, but whenever we do all the protest and programs, and we use the media, and also media is helping to the community get some of the benefit through that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Madegora, for talking about starting with the indigenous people's way of communicating in the forest to indicate their presence, to talking about media access, and how I feel it links up to the idea of language. So why are Soliga people using radio more than TV? And you did talk about not just access in terms of physical access to have access to the media, but also I would imagine that it is because there are no Soliga language materials and content available on the media that is being broadcast and available. So perhaps you could just very briefly talk about some of the key communication needs or information needs of the Soliga people that currently still remain unfulfilled. So you've spoken about, this wonderful initiative of taking the Soliga language to non-Soliga speaking people by creating a dictionary. But if you were to speak to the communication needs of the people, the information needs of the people, whether it was around the facilities that the government are their entitlements, so the needs of the Soliga people in terms of the information, and like you said, when they protest, where do they have their voice? So there is this cyclical role that communication plays, right? To enable the Soliga people to have a voice, as well as an information structure that allows them to get the relevant information in their own language. So is there such a gap that Soliga people encounter and your community encounters where you live in the forests? If you can just speak very briefly to that, maybe for a minute or two.
Yes, madam. I think the Soliga communities are living inside the forest area, and there is no accessibility. There is no some of the transport facility for the tribal area, and why people are using the radio is a low cost, so and more reachable to the community, and other media are not reachable to the community, expensive. So that is another thing. And language also, there's now no priority for the media. The indigenous languages or the Adivasi community language is not priority for the media, because they are more priority for the state language, and they focus on more on that. And that's why we are neglected in that way. I think they are also looking the different angle. I think, I think we want to planning to start the community radio. I think you also visited the BRT. So that time we had a meeting, and we don't have a separate media to do explain our language or more focus on the more language. I think last time also you visited the hearings, and that time we had a meeting. And we want, I think we already decided with our community, we want to start the community radio. I think through that, I think we can reach the more our Adivasi community, and we can document our Soliga language, and that can be used for the community. And also, we're not. I think we need to approach. I think we are lacking behind that. I think we need to approach the media people to focus on that.
Thank you so much. So the idea of having your own media or ownership over your own media, like a community radio, would enable the Soliga community to have greater rights over communication and talk about their issues. I think we will hear a little more about community radio from Bhaskar, who's running a community radio station in Assam. And I just, for the information of the audience here, to let you know that the community radio policy in India is very, very new. We got the community radio policy only in 2006. If we look at the history of media and media ownership in India, media was largely state-owned, and only in the mid-90s did we have commercial media, and there was liberalization. But it is only as late as 2006 that we got a community radio policy which enabled civil society to own and run their own media. However, today we are living in a digital world, and I have Meera sitting next to me with Khabar Lehriya, who has just gone digital. So I think between Meera and Bhaskar's presentation, it'll be wonderful to see what community radio and digital have brought to indigenous communities' communication rights, and if anything has changed, and if so, what. So Meera, I will invite you to talk about Khabar Lehriya and the work you do, and then we'll move to Bhaskar.
Okay, thank you, Benuji. मैं हिंदी बोलूंगी, सॉरी। तो लोग खबर लहरिया के बारे में थोड़ा सा मैं बताऊंगी। वैसे बहुत सारे लोग, मैं जब से आई हूँ सुन रहे हूँ, सब लोग बोल रहे हैं वो जानते हैं खबर लहरिया को। तो खबर लहरिया की शुरुआत यूपी के बुंदेलखंड इलाके से, आपने सुना होगा, पढ़ा होगा, गूगल में कभी सर्च में दिखा होगा आपको। तो वहां से 2000 बुंदेलखंड के चित्रकूट डिस्ट्रिक्ट से खबर लहरिया की शुरुआत हुई थी 2002 में। और हमने अपना सफर बुंदेलखंड से शुरू किया था। आज हम देश के 7 स्टेट में काम करते हैं। जब हमने इसको लोकल लैंग्वेज में शुरुआत किया था, शुरू में ही हाथ से लिखा हुआ चित्र होता था, और फोटो उसमें जो बनते थे वो हम खुद में बनाते थे, अखबार को खुद में लिखते थे, मतलब एक सीट थी। और धीरे धीरे वो बढ़ा, और आज हम पूरी तरह से ऑनलाइन हैं, डिजिटल हैं। आप सोशल मीडिया के हर प्लेटफॉर्म पर आप हमको देख सकते हैं। इसकी शुरुआत 7 महिलाओं ने मिल करके शुरू किया। आज 50+ महिलाएं इसमें काम करती हैं 7 राज्यों में। हर एक कम्युनिटी से हैं महिलाएं, लेकिन जो हमारा उद्देश्य था खबर लेरिया को शुरू करने का कि जो दलित हैं, कम पढ़े लिखे हैं, आदिवासी हैं, अल्पसंख्यक हैं, जो हाशिए में हैं, उनको मीडिया के क्षेत्र में आना चाहिए। इसलिए आना जरूरी है। जो आज हम सुबह से यहाँ पर बात कर रहे हैं कि उनकी भाषा के लिए बात करना है, जो हाशिए पर है, जिसमें खासकर आदिवासी के लिए बात हो रही है, उनकी भाषा को लेकर के, उनकी शिक्षा को लेकर के, उनके मुद्दों को लेकर के, जो मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया में कभी ये मुद्दे आते नहीं हैं आज। और एक बहुत बड़ी लड़ाई है इन मुद्दों को मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया में लाने के लिए। और ये सिर्फ मीडिया तक ही सीमित नहीं है, ये पूरे लोकतंत्र और सरकार तक लाने की एक बहुत लंबी लड़ाई है। हमारे बहुत सारे साथी यहाँ पर सुबह से बात कर रहे थे कि उन्होंने कितनी लड़ाई लड़ी है और आज भी स्थिति किस तरह से है। तो इन सब उद्देश्यों के साथ हम उतरे हैं फील्ड में काम करने के लिए। और हम चाहते हैं कि ऐसे लोग आए, ऐसे हाशिए पर रहने वाले लोग आए जो इन मुद्दों के लिए काम करें। और उद्देश्य ये सबसे बड़ा रहा है कि जिन लोगों की ये प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, अगर वो लोग खुद में आएंगे, मान लीजिए अगर मैं आदिवासी हूँ, अगर मैं उन मुद्दों को जिया है, मैंने देखा है, बचपन से देखा, आज तक देखती चली आ रही हूँ, तो अगर मैं ही मीडिया में चली जाऊं तो मैं खुद में अच्छे से लिख पाऊंगी ना, सरकार को बता पाऊंगी, यूनिवर्सिटियों को बता पाऊंगी, और अखबार में लिख करके सरकार से सीधे सवाल भी कर सकती हूँ। तो इस उद्देश्य के साथ हम आगे बढ़े। पूरी तरह से महिलाएं इसको निकालते हैं, पूरी तरह से डिजिटल है, आगे बढ़ सकते हैं और आगे जा सकते हैं पूरा। हाँ, तो हमारा जो कंटेंट है खासकर वो दलित, आदिवासी और अल्पसंख्यक हाशिए पर जो लोग हैं, वहाँ उनके मुद्दों को उठाना, लोकतंत्र से जोड़ना, सरकार तक आवाज पहुंचाना, उनसे जवाबदेही लेना, ये सारा काम हम करते हैं। और हमारी कोशिश है कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा आदिवासी मुद्दों को शामिल किया जाए, उन लोगों को खुद में शामिल करके इन मुद्दों की आवाज को बुलंद किया जाए। आगे बढ़ सकते हैं और आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। ये हमारा पूरा ग्रुप है। तो मैंने बताया कि खबर लहरिया की शुरुआत ही इसके उद्देश्य में है कि जहां से भी खबर लहरिया की शुरुआत हम करेंगे, वहां से, वहां की लोकल भाषा से, जो आज हम सुबह से भी सुन रहे हैं कि उनकी भाषा पर, उनकी वेशभूषा पर बात नहीं होती है, तो उनको, ताकि वो अपने को कॉन्फिडेंस महसूस कर पाए या हम उनको करा पाए, इसलिए हम उनकी ही भाषा में उनके मुद्दों पर बात करते हैं। आज भले ही हम चाहे जितना भी डिजिटल हो गए हैं, लेकिन जब हम उनसे इंटरव्यू करने जाते हैं, उनकी रिपोर्टिंग करने जाते हैं, कवरेज करने जाते हैं, तो कोशिश करते हैं कि उनके जैसे ही बन सके, हम वैसे ही वेशभूषा पर हो, वैसे ही बात कर पाए। मैंने कई जगह पे रिपोर्टिंग करी है, जैसे मैं बुंदेलखंड से हूँ, चित्रकूट से हूँ, तो वहां पर पाठा इलाका, बहुत सारे आदिवासी कोल समुदाय के लोग हैं, उनके बीच में जब हम कवरेज करने जाते हैं, तो जिस तरह से वो बहुत सिंपल है, उस तरह से हम बन के जाएं, उनकी भाषा में बात करें। भले ही हमें थोड़ा कम समझ में आता है, लेकिन कोशिश करते हैं। एक बात यह भी है कि मैं उस इलाके से हूँ, इसलिए मुझे समझ में आता है कि वो क्या बोलते हैं। लेकिन अगर मैं यूपी से उठ करके एमपी जा रही हूँ, झारखंड जा रही हूँ, छत्तीसगढ़ जा रही हूँ, तो वहां तो थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम होता है, लेकिन फिर भी कोशिश करते हैं कि हम उनको कॉन्फिडेंस महसूस करा पाए, ताकि वो अपने मुद्दे पर खुल कर बात करें। अचानक से कोई व्यक्ति उठ करके आकर के आपसे बात करेगा, आप क्यों बताएंगे? और ऐसी बात जो आप अपनी मतलब अपने परिचय को छुपाना चाहते हैं, बताना नहीं चाहते, तो वहां पर तो इस तरह से, मतलब हमारा कवरेज का जो आइडिया है, इस तरह से कवरेज करते हैं। ये शुरुआत का है यूपी और एमपी की, जो बुंदेलखंड इलाका है, वहाँ पर जो 13 डिस्ट्रिक्ट हैं, वहाँ पर हम पूरी तरह से काम करते हैं। काफी इंटीरियर इलाके हैं, विकास नहीं है, शिक्षा नहीं है, स्वास्थ्य नहीं, स्वास्थ्य के लिए सुविधाएं नहीं है। ये सारे मुद्दे बहुत 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 ही ज्यादा हैं। ऐसी महिलाओं को उन जगह से निकाल के लाना, उनको, क्योंकि यहाँ पर बात ये भी हो रही है कि उनको शिक्षा नहीं है और रोजगार नहीं है। शिक्षा नहीं है तो उसका जिम्मेदार कौन है? हम सिर्फ सरकार की बात करते हैं कई बारी, या फिर संस्थाओं की बात करते हैं। हम अभी बात हो रही थी खुद पर कितना बात करते हैं कि हमारी क्या जिम्मेदारी बनती है। तो ऐसे लोगों को, उनकी शिक्षा को मजबूत करना, उनको इस क्षेत्र में लाना, मीडिया जैसे क्षेत्र में लाना, इसको भी हम अपने ट्रेनिंग के माध्यम से महिलाओं को लाते हैं इस क्षेत्र में। पूरी तरह से अभी तक तो ये ऑफलाइन होता था, लेकिन अब ऑनलाइन हो गया है। और चम्मल अकादमी करके एक कोर्स है ऑनलाइन, जहाँ पर बहुत सारी ऐसी महिलाएं जुड़ी हैं, गांव-गांव से जुड़ी हैं महिलाएं और लड़कियां, ट्रेनिंग लेकर के हमारी संस्था में या फिर और भी मीडिया में जाकर के काम करते हैं। जब हमने शुरुआत की थी अखबार की, हमने खुद में सेलिंग की है, तो उसकी खुद में, क्योंकि बहुत बड़ा ये चैलेंज है कि पहले जिस तरह से कंपटीशन है मीडिया के क्षेत्र में, भाषा की बात आती है, क्योंकि हमने भाषा बुंदेली लिखी है, क्योंकि हमने भाषा वहाँ के लोकल स्थानीय लिखी हुई है, इसलिए पेपर कोई पढ़ना नहीं चाहता था। लोग कहते थे कि मतलब देश आगे बढ़ रहा है, देश चांद पर जा रहा है, आप पीछे लेके जा रहे हो, आप जो गांव की भाषा है उसको पढ़ा रहे हो, हमारे बच्चे बिगड़ जाएंगे, उनको आप क्या सिखा रहे हो। आज इंग्लिश में बात करते हैं लोग, इंग्लिश बिना कुछ भी नहीं है, कोई शिक्षा नहीं है, मतलब यहाँ तक कि जिंदगी में नहीं है। फिर आप वही बात जो हम नहीं सिखाना चाहते अपने बच्चों को, वही सिखाया जा रहा है। आज गांव के बच्चे, सारे लोग नहीं पर कुछ लोग जाकर के बड़े शहरों में रहते हैं, वहां पढ़ाई करते हैं, यहाँ पर यूनिवर्सिटी जैसे जगह पे आकर के पढ़ाई करते हैं। तो हम क्यों वो भाषा पढ़ाते हैं? हमारा चैलेंज रहा, कोई हमारे अखबार को बेचना नहीं चाहता था, हमने खुद ने इस चैलेंज को लिया, हमने खुद में बेचा अखबार को। तो एक बहुत बारी ऐसे हुआ कि हमें लगा कि हमारा अखबार कौन भला पढ़ते हैं कि नहीं पढ़ते हैं। बहुत बारी ऐसे लोग बोलते हैं कि हमें नहीं पढ़ना, ले जाइए। तो हमने उसका सर्वे करवाया, तब हमें पता चला कि एक हमारी प्रति को 16 लोग पढ़ते हैं, अब 20 लोग पढ़ते हैं। तब हमें भी काम करने की और भी उत्सुकता हुई कि नहीं, जो हम सोचते हैं कि हम पीछे तो नहीं जा रहे हैं, पीछे तो नहीं जाए, क्या सच में हम ये जो लोग बोल रहे हैं कि आप पीछे लेके जा रहे हैं वही कर रहे हैं क्या? इस सवाल को हम उभर पाए, इस सवाल से जब ये सर्वे हुआ। तो बहुत सारे अब ऐसे मुद्दे आए हैं जहां पर हमने बात करी है कि मीटू जैसे केस जो सिर्फ शहर बस की बात नहीं है, गांव में भी ऐसे मुद्दे हैं, उन पर भी इन महिलाओं ने बढ़ चढ़ के बात करी जब भी है। और रिपोर्टिंग की बात, मुद्दों की बात तो मैंने बताई ही कि इस तरह से मुद्दे हम कवरेज करते आए हैं। और आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। ओके, तो जब भी चुनाव आता है यहाँ पर सुबह भी बात आई थी एक पैनल में कि चुनावी मुद्दे क्यों नहीं बनते हैं, आदिवासी इलाकों के जो मुद्दे हैं उनको क्यों नहीं लिया, उन पर क्यों नहीं चुनाव लड़ा जाता है। तो हमने इस पर बहुत रिपोर्टिंग की है। हम बात करते हैं, जब भी हम आदिवासी की बात करते हैं तो बात ये आती है कि जल जंगल जमीन, वही उन्हीं से उनका अधिकार जुड़ा है, उन्हीं से उनकी जिंदगी जुड़ी हुई है, जीवन जुड़ा हुआ है। किताबों में हमने पढ़ा, रिसर्चों में हमने पढ़ा, आप कितना गूगल सर्च कर लीजिए, बहुत सारी चीजें मिल जाएंगी, लेकिन वही चीजें तो उनको नहीं मिली हैं, वही चीजें तो नहीं है। जब हम रिपोर्टिंग करते हैं उनको पानी नहीं है, जबकि वो पानी ही उनका मुद्दा है। ये रिपोर्टिंग में जब 2017 में चुनाव हुए थे विधानसभा के यूपी में, हमने एक कैंपेन करी थी, मतलब कि पूरा इलाका, ज्यादातर जिले जहाँ से हमारी सरकारें आती हैं, जहाँ से चुनावी मुद्दे और चुनाव की बात उठती है, वहां से हमने शुरू किया। और वहां पर हमने देखा, वहां पर आदिवासियों की और जो हाशिए पर रहने वाले लोग हैं, उनकी किस तरह की स्थिति। हमारे चित्रकूट जिले में या एमपी के कई ऐसे क्षेत्रों में जो नदी किनारे किनारे लोग बसे हुए हैं, आदिवासी लोग। अभी बात हो रही थी कि ये होता है कि वो विकास नहीं चाहते, विकास नहीं करना देना चाहते हैं। जब हमने रिपोर्टिंग की, हमें ये मिला कि उनका कहा जाता है कि आपका विस्थापन होना है, माने इस जगह पे कुछ और डेवलपमेंट का काम होना है, विकास का काम होना है, तो आप यहाँ पे ना रह करके आप शहर में आ जाइए, यहाँ पर हम आपको अच्छी जमीन दे देंगे, अच्छे घर देंगे, सरकार की जितनी योजनाएं हैं वो सारे हम आपको दे देंगे, यहाँ पर आप रहिए और ये वाली जमीन छोड़ दीजिए, क्योंकि यहाँ पे डेवलपमेंट होना है, यहाँ पर विकास होना है। तो उसको लेकर के उधर विकास भी नहीं हो रहा, जो भी बात की जा रही वो भी नहीं हो रहा है, उनको रहने भी नहीं दिया जा रहा है। तो वो तो फंसे हुए हैं, वो कहते हैं विकास भी नहीं हो रहा, हमको रहने भी नहीं दिया जा रहा। हमें जो योजनाओं का लाभ मिलना चाहिए, सड़क, पानी, बिजली, वो कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है, क्योंकि कहा जा रहा है कि यहाँ पर आपको, यहाँ पर बसाया जाएगा, जहाँ पे बसाया जाएगा वहां से आपको वहां पर विकास कराया जाएगा। तो आ, ओके ओके मैं अपनी बात जल्दी खत्म करूंगी। तो ऐसे बहुत सारे मुद्दे हैं जो हमने उनके मुद्दों पर काम किया। बस एक उदाहरण के साथ मैं आपको बताऊंगी कि आदिवासी समुदाय के लिए किस तरह से बात होती है विकास को लेकर के। एक गांव है बांदा का, जो राजाराम का पुरवा पड़ता है, वहां पर कुछ ही कितना 49 परिवार, 49 परिवार रहता है। और उन परिवारों के बीच में जो योजनाएं हैं वो मैं आपको बता दूं, मैं सारा रिकॉर्ड लेके आई हूँ कि मैंने कवरेज किया है यहाँ पर, कि जो सामान्य परिवार है वो 45 है, जॉब कार्ड यहाँ पे 14 है, राशन कार्ड 25 है, आवास बहुत कम है, वृद्धा पेंशन जो 3 है जो पेंशन मिलती है, विधवा पेंशन 2 है, भूमिहीन जो परिवार है वो 44 है। समझ सकते हैं जिनके बारे में हम बात करते हैं कि उन्हीं की जमीन है, लेकिन 49 परिवार में सिर्फ, मतलब 49 परिवार में, 49 फैमिली में सिर्फ 44 फैमिली को जमीन है, बाकी भूमिहीन है। जो कर्जदार हैं 48 लोग हैं। यहाँ पर स्कूल, आंगनबाड़ी, संपर्क मार्ग ये नहीं है। और इस पर रिपोर्टिंग हमने शुरू की है 2006 से। मुझे इसलिए याद है क्योंकि जब मैंने अपनी जॉब जर्नी शुरुआत करी थी केएल में, खबर लहरिया में, तभी से हमने वहां पर रिपोर्टिंग शुरू की, क्योंकि हमारा फोकस ही होता है कि हम इन जगहों पर रिपोर्टिंग करें, इन जगहों से मुद्दे निकाल के लाएं। तब से आज तक भी ये जो आप इस देख रहे हैं, ये कोविड के टाइम का है। तब से आज तक भी, अभी मैंने हाल ही में मार्च में रिपोर्टिंग यहाँ से करी, फिर से वही स्थिति है, कोई सुधार नहीं हुआ। संस्थाएं भी यहाँ पर काम कर रही हैं, रिपोर्टिंग भी हो रही है, लेकिन कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, आज तक नहीं हुआ कुछ। आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। ओके, थैंक यू।
Thank you, Meera, for bringing out this constant tension between preserving local indigenous language and modernizing and bringing in English. And this concept of reporting by the people for themselves, जो आपने बात की कि आदिवासी लोग ही मीडिया में आए और अपनी बात रख सके, तो अगर 1 मिनट में आप बताएंगे कि वो जो प्रक्रिया है जिसमें कि एक आदिवासी रिपोर्टर बनके अपने आवाज उठा पाता है मीडिया में, उसमें सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज क्या रहता है?
मेरा तो सवाल, जब अभी दयामणि जी बोल रही थी कि उनके मतलब उनको इतनी लड़ाई लड़नी पड़ी है, इतना उनको प्रॉब्लम हुआ है, तो मुझे बहुत ऐसे सवाल करने का मन कर रहा था, लेकिन मैंने उसको फिर नहीं किया कि ऐसे बहुत सारे लोगों की ज़रूरत है और उसमें उसके पीछे बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं। हम मानते हैं कि उनकी शिक्षा पर ध्यान नहीं दिया जा रहा है, उनकी और भी जो उनके इश्यूज़ हैं, उन पर ध्यान नहीं दिया जा रहा है, लेकिन ऐसे लोगों को आना पड़ेगा। आप तैयार हुए, सोनी सूरी जी यहाँ पर हैं या नहीं हैं? वो जैसे लोग तैयार हुए हैं, ऐसे लोगों की एक्टिविस्टों की, ऐसे रिपोर्टरों की बहुत ज़रूरत है और जब हम जाते हैं इन उद्देश्यों के साथ में कि ऐसे लोगों को निकाल के लाएँ, जो रिपोर्टिंग कर सकें, तो शुरुआत से हमारे यहाँ रहे हैं आदिवासी पत्रकार। उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे से रिपोर्टिंग की और आज ख़ैर वो नहीं है, वो उनका मतलब उन्होंने अब जॉब कहीं और कर लिए है। उसके अलावा अभी भी कई ऐसी महिलाएं हैं जिन पर हम जिनके साथ में हम रिपोर्टिंग करते हैं, लेकिन जो आपने चैलेंज की बात की है वो ये है कि अ, बहुत लोग आकर के मीडिया के नाम से डर जाते हैं क्योंकि उनको लगता है कि उनकी बातों को कोई सुनने वाला नहीं है। अगर वो बात कहेंगे भी, क्योंकि उसमें बाय फेस बाय नाम जाएगा सब कुछ, वो जो बात करेंगे, तो उसपे फिर उनको और भी डर, और आज के माहौल में तो और भी डर लग रहा है कि वो अगर मुद्दे उठाएँगे तो फिर उनका क्या होगा? या फिर ठीक है, मैं हूँ आदिवासी, मैं काम कर रही हूँ, मैं मुद्दे उठा रही हूँ और मैं एक संस्था के साथ में, एक ऐसी कम्युनिटी के साथ में हूँ, जो मैं अपने को सेफ समझ रही हूँ। लेकिन मैं ये भी तो समझ रही हूँ कि मेरा फैमिली भी तो है, मेरे बच्चे भी तो हैं। तो ऐसे में फिर ये सबसे बड़ी चुनौती होती है कि वो लोग अपनी बात कहने से, या फिर उनको भरोसा नहीं होता है कि उनकी बात सुनी भी जाएगी कि नहीं सुनी जाएगी। अब यही जो राजारामपुर वाला उदाहरण मैं आपको बता रही हूँ, आज 2006 से आज 23 चल रहा है, इतने साल हो गए। अगर उनकी बात को नहीं सुना जा रहा है, वहाँ पर मीडिया भी है, वहाँ पर संस्था के लोग भी हैं, नहीं सुना जा रहा, तो फिर वो किस पर भरोसा करेंगे? मीडिया पर, संस्था पर, सरकार पर, प्रशासन पर, किस पर भरोसा करें, विश्वास करें कि उनके मुद्दे को सुना जाएगा या वो सुरक्षित रह पाएंगे?
Thank you, Meera. Very important aspect around safety of journalists in the media and communication world. We speak about safety of journalists, and if we are looking at Indigenous community members becoming reporters and becoming journalists and being able to represent their communities and raise the voice, then even more important about ensuring their safety and ensuring that they are able to raise those voices safely. Thank you so much for bringing that out. We'll quickly move to Bhaskar Bhuya and linking this conversation around who speaks for whom and what is that media. I think an important aspect around having ownership over your own media so that you have your own editorial guidelines, and can a community radio station therefore sufficiently represent Indigenous communities in their languages. Bhaskar, if you could switch on your camera, I'll bring up your presentation. Bhaskar is an old dear friend. I have worked with Radio Brahmaputra for many, many years. And I remember going there when my daughter was 3, she's 15 now. So it's a long relationship. Over to you, Bhaskar.
Thank you, Benu. Yeah, I'm actually in mobile phone and also in my laptop. My laptop camera is not working, so I'm opening my mobile camera actually. So thanks to Benu and all estimated speakers of the panel, and thanks to OP Jindal University. And myself, Bhaskar Jyoti Bhuya, I am representing Brahmaputra Community Radio Station. We are situated in Dibrugarh, Assam. My colleague Rumi Nayak, she is a tea community reporter, community producer. She is also joining with us. She is also in online. So I am here to talk about Brahmaputra Community Radio Station. Our community radio station mainly working among the tea garden community, riverine community, and other rural community in our area. And basically we are talking about here, I'm here to talk about our community radio station and its role in advocating the indigenous language and communication rights. So Next, yes, thank you. So Radio Brahmaputra, as Benu already said, that Radio Brahmaputra is the first NGO based, or you can say the first grassroots community radio station of Northeast India. And our journey has started in 2009. Benu and Ram is also was also there, and we started our official broadcast from 2015. It get more than 5 years to get the license from the ministry to open the radio station. So we have started in 2009 and start broadcasting from 2015. So next slide, please. As you see in this slides, the Radio Brahmaputra, actually the station is strategically located in the close proximity to the river Brahmaputra, and it is covering 2 districts. Within our coverage, 30 kilometers of coverage, we are covering 2 districts, Dibrugarh and Dhemaji district. So you can see the Brahmaputra is floating from Arunachal towards Dhuburi to Bangladesh. So in between, this is the Brahmaputra. So Dibrugarh is known as a tea city of India. Actually, we are producing near about 50% of tea all over India. So it is called as a tea city of India, and we are also, Dibrugarh is also known for the river Brahmaputra. Actually, the river Brahmaputra crossing Dibrugarh about 19 kilometers of the district. So this area is distinct between. So due to diverse geographical landscape and comprising river, tea garden, rural, semi-urban, urban localities. In our district, we are serving many languages and dialect speaking community within our 30 kilometers of coverage. Next. So as you know that if you look at the Northeast, so the Northeast is a distinct diversity because here we are near about 220 language and dialect speaking community in this region. But the question is that out of 220 language and dialect in the Northeast, only 3 languages, Assamese, Boru, and Manipuri. These 3 languages are recognized by the Constitution of India. So other 217 languages have no any recognition. So other language and dialect actually limited within the language speaking community, and most of them are treated as endangered language and dialect. And we all know that when we talk about the language or dialect becoming endangered or declining the number of speakers, then it impacts on their cultural diversity, their cultural identity, make them socially isolation, and it also create identity crisis and create educational and communication challenges to them. So this same thing is happening with our area also. Next. So within 30 kilometers of our radio station, in the tea garden, riverine, and other rural and urban localities, there are within 30 kilometers, there are more than 9 language speaking communities are researched. These are mainly Assamese community, Assamese speaking community, Sadri is a tea community dialect, Boro, Hajong, Banai, Missing, Kuzrajbongki, Rabha, and many other tribal communities are researched. So within 30 kilometers of radius, there are maximum 9 to 10 other language speaking communities are researched here. So when we started our community radio station in the year 2009, Benu can also remember that we did study, we conducted study, that community need assessment study. In that study, we have found that except mainstream Assamese speaking community, other language speaking communities in this tea garden area, riverine or rural area, do not have any access to the existing media. And most important thing is that the people's participations and their engagement in the existing media platforms are very limited and very poor. So during this time, in the year 2009, already we have crossed 1 decade. The uses of internet, the smartphone, social media are very limited in our area, and available is only in the privileged among the privileged class of urban localities. So most of the population of the rural communities do not have any access to the information they actually need. Basically, information for health, agriculture, education, livelihood, government schemes, these are never goes to the community, those who are living in the tea garden, in the riverine, or in the rural area. Informations are the most of the information, such development informations are available in Assamese, Hindi, and in English, and it is in the very standard form, in a written form, in only available in internet, book, research paper, and government guidelines. So, and it is still difficult for us or community to get access to and consume the such type of information they are actually need for it. So that's why, as a community radio station, Radio Brahmaputra's primary focus is to create the participatory and community engaging and easy to access communication platform to the marginalized community. So it is our primary focus. So who do not have any participation access to the mainstream media, or do not have any right platform to discuss about their rights and issues. So as a community radio station, we focus on that issues. So we have started broadcast in 2015 in many languages: Assamese language, Sadri language, Boru, Hajong, Deori, Mishing. There are 5 languages we have started broadcast in 2015, and these programs are produced completely by the producers from the local indigenous community and in their own language and dialects, aiming the main aim is to the more participation of the community in their own radio program. This was the main aim, and we have started 5 language radio station in the 5 languages. So next. So you can see she is Rumi. She's also in the panel also. Is one of our colleague. She's working with us since 2010. Last 12 years she is working with us as a Sadri program producer from tea tribes. And if we look about the tea tribes, they are actually brings from the state of Jharkhand, Orissa, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal, and Andhra Pradesh in multiple stages between 1860 to 1890s by Britishers as a tea garden laborer. So they speak multiple languages such as Udiya, Shola, Sadri, Sambalpuri, Santali, Chhattisgarhi, Gondi, Mundari. These are the language, origin language they speak. And about more than 70 lakhs population of the tea tribe spread across the Assam. But if you notice, the socio-economic conditions of the tea garden workers are very poor and very pathetic. So main issue is the lack of education among the tea garden communities, poverty, poor living standard, lack of medical facilities. These are the common issues among the tea garden community, and mostly they are cut off from the mainstream development program. So they mostly hesitate to connect to the mainstream due to language barrier, and same thing is happening also other tribal communities also. If we look at the Deori community, Deori is a tribal community of Assam. There is about 50,000 population in Assam, spread across Assam. Mishing is about 7 lakhs population. Hajong is a tribe. This is only 70,000 population in the 70,000 population in Assam. They are also Mizoram also. So these are the small indigenous tribal group, have no any practice in their language and culture, or they have no any common platform to participate and express their views and express their concern in their own language and dialects. So we have started, so our primary thing is that we start the radio program in their own language so that they can participate and they can express their voice through radio platform. As Madegowra ji also already said that the radio is a very popular platform among the rural communities or tribal communities. Same thing is also here. The tribal communities mostly access to the radio only. Basically in our area, Radio Brahmaputra, we have all India radio station. We have also in Dibrugarh. But if we talk about the other government-run radio stations, they also broadcast different radio program in other languages or other dialects. But the problem is that the most common people, the grassroots people or common people, cannot participate in their radio programs because the policy guidelines, program production guidelines, because they cannot participate in their own radio programs, because these government-run radio stations have different guidelines, program production guidelines. They need good voice and other things also. But as a Radio Brahmaputra's policy is very simple. Our policy is to make participation easy, accessible, irrespective of education qualification, voice quality, and gender. So this station is, the Radio Brahmaputra is open for all, and if you are interested, if anybody is interested to participate in a radio program or produce any radio program in their own language and dialect, so anybody can come to the radio station. They can produce, they can broadcast their own program in their own language and dialect, following the broadcast ethics of the radio station. So that's why Rumi is working from last 12 years. Pritamjit, he is from Hajong community. Junmoni is from Hajong community. Banai community people, Pinku and other youth and women are continuously, last 1 decade, they are continuously working with Radio Brahmaputra as a platform to raise their issues and voice in their own language and dialects. So these are the people actually working with Radio Brahmaputra to express their voice using this radio platform. So next. So as a Radio Brahmaputra, we are producing different language programs, and we are showcasing the cultural programs, cultural practice, traditions, different values of the communities, indigenous communities activities, basically their content creation, and their basic things, the ownership. They can think, they can talk about that this is our radio station. This is not Radio Brahmaputra. This is run by someone, NGOs. They can talk easily that Radio Brahmaputra is our radio station. If you go to the village or tea garden, if you ask anybody about Radio Brahmaputra, they can say, oh, it is our radio station. They can easily speak, easily accept this as their own radio station. So as a culture, and also we are providing the vital information and local information, not news actually. Local information, educational content in indigenous language. Also, we are critical information, health information, promoting awareness and community empowerment in their indigenous language as a community radio station. So this way we are doing community radio station to make more participatory and engaging the community, so that they can easily participate and bring their issues and voices through using the community radio platform. So since initiating the Brahmaputra broadcast program,
Bhaskar,
yes,
Bhaskar,
yes,
just asking you to be mindful of time.
okay.
Sorry.
So okay, now this is my last slide, and if you have any questions, then you can ask. And also Rumi is also here, so she can also share her experience as a community radio producer. So over to you, Ben.
Yeah, I just had one quick question before we move to the next panelist. Thank you so much for talking about people's participation and in community dialogue building that community radio does, and the access to development information that the community radio is trying to bring. My question was around sustainability. So we heard from Meera ji about how do we sustain the participation of indigenous communities in making their own media? Is there a policy gap? Because today in the media, we know we are all, media architecture is such that it is dependent on advertising. And if community radio becomes dependent on advertising, will it truly respond to the needs of indigenous people? So how is Community Radio Brahmaputra thinking about this issue of sustainability?
Actually, sustainability is there three. One is the program sustainability, another was in the financial sustainability, and another third is the technical sustainability. So in case of the program sustainability and financial sustainability, Radio Brahmaputra following the low cost pattern. So we are not going to very high cost, highly costly activities to that. So basically is the community, we are make easy to access the community radio and participation of the all community people. They can easily participate. So nobody asking for any money to participate or do any radio program. So this is the main thing. We are not going to provide any monetary benefit to the community to make radio programs. So people easily come to the radio station. We make them, we train them 2 or 3 days. We train them, and they can easily produce programs. So in the program sustainability, Radio Brahmaputra has no any issues, because anybody can access to the radio station, and nobody asking for any money to make any radio program. So this way we are trying to radio station make easy to access without any financial contribution to the community to make radio program. This is the Radio Brahmaputra is their platform. They can use it as their own radio platform, own radio station. As we use a mandir or masjid, we are not going. We just provide the donations to the mandir or masjid. We are not charging to mandir or masjid to get prayer from to take prayer in that mandir or masjid. So same model is also we are trying to apply in the community radio station also. So this way we are trying to make the program sustainable. Yes.
Thank you, Bhaskar. I have a 2-minute film that shows Rumi at her job. It's just 2 minutes, and Rumi, it's so lovely to see you up after I don't know how many, 10 years maybe. Wonderful to see you. So let me just play this film before I move on and invite Stella to speak.
हर दिन शुरू हईला मोर जीवन रेडियो ब्रह्मपुत्र के संग मैं लागो रेडियो ब्रह्मपुत्र के रिपोर्टर रूमी। आज 6 बछर होते मोर रेडियो ब्रह्मपुत्र में काम। 6 बछर में मैं चा बागान के सादरी भाषा में विभिन्न रकम के अनुष्ठान प्रस्तुत करना और हुआ से एक खास प्रोग्राम हलई आड्डा। रेडियो ब्रह्मपुत्र में मैं चा बागान के सादरी भाषा में आड्डा प्रोग्राम बनाना और वो आड्डा प्रोग्रामटा में चा बागान के विभिन्न जन व्यक्ति आवेना और सब निजर भाषा में निजर मन के बात गिला कहेना। उ सबके स्वास्थ्य क्षेत्र में जिगला समस्या है, उ सबके शिक्षा क्षेत्र में जिगला समस्या है, बा सबके गांव बा निजर अंचल में जिगला समस्या है, उ समस्या गिला के उ सब निजे ही किरकम समाधान करे पाबेन बा सबके हाथे की उपाय है उगला के बारे में ओई आड्डा अनुष्ठान में हमें आलोचना करिला।
आज के अड्डा
कहाँ
कार संगे
কি বিষয়ে
तो आज के आड्डा अनुष्ठान में हम ही तो संगे बात करबो बानपानी के विषय में जे बानपानी के समय में किरकम के हम के समस्या होला और समस्या गिला हम किरकम मिल के समाधान करे पारबो। तो ये आड्डा अनुष्ठान में तो जेहेतु हम होइला बात आलोचना कइला और आज तो संगे हम पुनराही बात करे के आगो आड्डा एकटा हम कोई रही न जाला।
नाम राजेन कर्मकार और मोर मायान नटलाइन आस्तायो और मैं रेडियो ब्रह्मपुत्र सुन के बहुत खुशी लागेला जाते हमनी के बहुत गुण थोड़ा सीखे के और पाइला और तो हमनी के बहुत प्रोग्राम सुनेला जे रेडियो ब्रह्मपुत्र के और आड्डा अनुष्ठान जाते हमनी के इतना सुंदर लागेला सुने के ये हमनी के भाषा में आवेला ढेर खिनी बुझे के पाए ना हमनी के आदमी और सुन के इतना अच्छा लागेला जे रेडियो तो सुनते रहो रकम।
मैं आड्डा अनुष्ठान जे सुन के बात कुला बहुत अच्छा लागेला
हमनी कहे पारेला के सोनाइक जाबू हमनी ये दुख के बात ये आडावन सर में हमने जाए के जन हमनी मिल पैदा हो के यार जाए के परम पुत्र में हमनी जाए के सोनाइक पाइला जे दिल्ली बम्बई तो हमनी दुनिया में देख ना की किंतु हमनी बागान के आदमी हमनी इटा निकल के हमनी बहुत सुविधा पाइला जे हमनी कहे पारे होइला हमनी के जे इटा निकल के हमनी बहुत सुविधा पाइला जे सुन के तो हमनी एक दो आखर माने हमनी सुनाइक पारिला हमनी तो कोनो बड़ो बड़ो आदमी गुला के सुनाइक जाइक नहीं पारिला ओइले हमनी आडा अनुसार हमनी हकाई के मंगाई के हमनी सब बात को हेक पारिला जे हमनी के सुनो हमनी के दुख के बात बड़ो बड़ो आदमी सब मिनिस्टर गुला जैसे हमनी के गरीब के लेके जो मिनिस्टर बने ना से सब अच्छा से सुन लो हमनी के बात जे हमनी कितना कष्ट से हमनी लेला आ तहनी बड़ा होई के ले हमनी के खातिर आवला गिड़गिड़ाई के ले वोट मांगे के ले आ वोट देला हमनी के लेके तहनी बड़ा होला और हमनी के पीछे तहनी नहीं देखला। नमस्कार।
Thank you, Bhaskar and Rumi.
Thank you, Benu.
Let me invite Stella now to share her experiences and thoughts about language and communication rights, particularly coming from the South Asian perspective. We've heard from 3 representatives in India. It will be wonderful, Stella, if you can speak to the entire subcontinent. Thank you.
What a big responsibility. Thank you so much, Venu. And before I say anything about the sessions, I just would like to congratulate Steve and the whole team who organized this conference. I'm sure you might have very sound sleep last night because yesterday was such a wonderful day. And today, you know, each and every session is going so well. And I was just thinking, because I have been organizers many times and you know how worried, you know, but I must congratulate you and must say that, you know, this is really a successful conference. And we also believe that powerful place attract powerful people, powerful discussions take place, and powerful actions are, you know, initiated. So I'm sure, you know, this conference would really lead to wonderful actions in future. So I just want to say congratulations once again. And yes, to enter into the theme of today's session, that is the Indigenous language and communication right. And I think I have been repeatedly saying that language is not merely the word and the sound, it's the wealth of wisdom also. So the way I understand is language is definitely to learn and grow, for each of one of us to learn and grow, whereas communication is to be connected and build trust and strengthen a human relationship. So this each actions unite us and it doesn't divide us. If any action divide us, I think that is something wrong, whether because of the language or because of the methodology, because of the time, whatsoever it is. So this is what I want to begin with. And also, I also would like to start with some of the information. I'm sure many of you might know it. And if you have not heard it, I think it would be a good reminder of the initiative taken at the UN level. And that is from the year 2022 till 2032, United Nations has declared International Decade of Indigenous Language. So declaring itself is not enough, but I think it is our responsibility that, you know, we take advantage of this decade, having various kind of discussions and initiative. This is a call for that. And another information is February 21st is always celebrated by UN as International Mother Language Day. This is definitely initiated by Bangladesh at UN and UNESCO, of course, and then, this is celebrated, and it's really very important, especially for indigenous people and also for the educationists, because mother tongue is so important, right? Especially in Nepal, June 18th, indigenous people celebrate it as a Black Day, because on June 18, Nepal Supreme Court had overruled that indigenous languages should not be used at any level of the government, places. So we still, do that. And another information that I want to share with you is in Nepal, yesterday also there was some thing about it. In Nepal, there are 125 languages, and I think Binu might know about it because she has worked in Nepal, and spoken by, of course, indigenous people. And this has been recognized as a national language, not as a main language to be spoken, but as a national language. And if we look at the census of the language, 10 languages make 85% of the language population. 10 language cover 85%, okay? And 15% is covered by 110 languages. So it means 110 languages are very rarely spoken, and most of the languages are in the queue for extinction. So where are we, in the status of our language? But I must be very proud to tell with you, because we had sessions on women's, indigenous women. The language actually mostly spoken and have been kept alive, and it's the woman. The women are the one, because men are more exposed to the city and, more they get, modern education. And so who are really keeping it alive is the indigenous women, and I should say that. And the second thing that I would like to also share, and I think I should not hesitate to say it, and I say it very loudly also, is actually the condition of this 110 languages, which is at the brink of extinction. Who should be blamed is the education system and the education institutions, who have become the agent to kill it, to murder it, maybe with very good intention, but the implication has been such that, it really discourages. When you go for mono-language, it means, you are really, you're discouraging the other languages to speak. So this is another thing that I really thought, I should bring that up. And another thing is, I don't know why these languages are looked at as a problem and not as a potential. Why these languages are looked as a hindrance and as a burden, whereas this should not have been like that. Why one particular language should be privileged, that and is registered and is given the license that that is the language through which you will make progress and there will be growth. I think we really need to shift it. When is the shift going to become? When is that going to take place? I think it is very urgent that we try to look at it and we try to flip it. Instead of having these languages as a problem, why don't we look at it as a solution? when I go and looked at the classes, I go and visit the schools in the villages, there would be 50 to 60 children in the class. They will be all Tamang, who speak Tamang languages at home. And there will be one teacher. I'm sorry, these teachers are always from high caste, who speak only Nepali. And is that fair that, 40 children are forced to learn the language that one teacher speak? Can't that one teacher be someone, who understand and who speak the language of these 40 children? That would have made it so easy. Yeah. So I think these are some of the shift and the call, and I think we really need to look at it and then, try to do it another way. And then another thing that I always question is, especially, I'm among such a high intellectual, this is high time that, we try to change the framework, we try to change the model. Because in the previous session also, we discussed about the model, how the present development model is doing more harm than good. If it is doing more harm than good, can't we stop it? Can't we really develop a model that fit our people rather than, we borrow the model and we forced our development in that model and we try to fit it. I think it's high time that we try to bring out our own tool, develop our own theory. We don't need to go back. If we look at the wisdom of Oriental culture, I'm so proud that, I'm born in this land. Look at this continent. If you look at all the philosophies, high philosophies, born in this land, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Christian. Imagine, such a wealth of wisdom, which is born in this country. And, what kind of pedagogy, those days. The only pedagogy that I remember is, there will be one mantra given in Gurukul, and that mantra be reflected. And, once the reflection and insight is, you discover, that is like a key to the wealth of the wisdom and knowledge. And we just forget and we run after, this modernization, and I don't want to call it Western or whatever, So we really neglect our own methodology. We really neglect our own framework, our own model. That is the problem. So it's high time that we really change it. So, and that is one thing that I want to bring that up. And I'm saying this because, like the modern nation state is one nation, one language, and isn't that? But we don't fit into that because we are society blessed with diversity. Why this diversity should become the curse? So this is another thing that I thought, I should really say it because this is the right place to say it. And at least, some of you would really, I'm sure there are many attempts, to really bring that up. Otherwise, every time, and the communication, definitely we want to have radio, we want to have television, but what do we want to do out of that? What is the purpose? Is that, to tell them that what you know is wrong, what you say is bad, your lifestyle is wrong, what you understand is nonsense, and then you learn something new? Is that the purpose of this, a radio station and the, TV or whatever the communication modality that we have taken it? I think we got to be very clear, what is the purpose? Otherwise, every time you keep on saying from generation to generation, you are stupid, you don't know, I need to come and tell you, this inferiority complex, this is so difficult to break that inferiority complex. And at the same time, there are some people with a superiority complex saying that I know, I have the answer and you don't know, I need to come and tell them. I think the time has come that, we break this barrier, try to listen to each other. There is so much to learn from them and there is so much for them to learn from us. So I think if there is a mutual equal footing, everything becomes very interesting. Otherwise, you go and tell and, oh, you don't know how to do it. you are not good at it. So where is the growth and where is the progress? I think that really killed it. So this is where I want to bring that up. And definitely, I was questioning about empowerment and then so that, it could be understood in the right way. And so in this sense, I really want to bring up some of the experience of cultural survival. Cultural survival also definitely run community radio. And we also have come up with the Indigenous Community Media Fund. And through that, we have been funding for the indigenous people from 20 different countries, from Asia, South America, and then Africa. But what we are doing, it is just some financial support and technical support from the very designing till the implementation. What is the topics and everything? I think it's managed by the indigenous people. And that is some of the I won't say perfect, but like to some satisfaction, we are happy with that. And I would be very happy to share with you later.
Thank you, Stella. I think extremely important point about the hierarchy of the value system that has been placed on languages. And if we all understand, language is the heart of knowledge and knowledge systems. And if we don't preserve those knowledge systems, then those languages become extinct, and languages stay because there is a transaction happening in society. And if those languages are not transacted in, if people do not use that language on a daily basis, and thanks also for really pointing a finger at the education system. And I think it's important to re-evaluate the education system and its role in indigenous people's languages and their preservation. I just want to reflect a little bit, since this is a panel around language and communication rights, and we haven't had a chance to talk as much about the role of technology, new media, and the digital world that we are living in today. If I were to ask you whether the internet is living up to the promise that it had of diversity, or whether it is, becoming an evil that is remarginalizing indigenous people, what would your assessment be of the internet and its role in preserving indigenous languages or enabling indigenous people to have a voice?
We are in the world where this technology, especially the advancements made in the world of digital world, we cannot even think of depriving ourselves, because we are so caught up with it. Even like I have a 20 months old grandson. I don't know why, instead of communicating with a human being, now the child communicates so well with this small little, box where, cartoon and everything. And this boy, he understands so well. And for me, it's so difficult. This is the world we are living in today. This is the reality. I don't know how fast, how they communicate, because we are Nepali and, the whole, everything is different, but he will be looking at white people totally in America or a European setting, and still he's so comfortable with that. And I would not even dare to say that we should not be conscious about it. So I think technology, whatever the scientific advancements that we have it these days, we should try to use it. If we don't use it in the right way, it will use us. So definitely we should make use of it. Otherwise, that will become again, a curse for us, especially for the indigenous people. It will become a curse for us, not only for everyone, actually, So this is a challenge. this is really a big challenge. And how do we do with it is, I would say, I won't say, I have the answer, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Thank you, Stella. I'm being told that we've run out of time and that we do not have time for a question and answer session. So yes, if there are a couple of burning questions, I'll open the panel up for any key questions that anybody may have.
I just want to supplement something that Stella said. Thank you very much for being here. We both sit on the board of Cultural Survival, and as she mentioned, 20 new grants were made for community radio, but a total of 76 Indigenous community radio stations have benefited from this. And in the context of the decade of Indigenous languages, I want to quote from our executive director, who said the most critical measure of language revitalization is the creation of new speakers. And this, along with securing adequate funding, needs to be the focus of the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. So that collaboration, building it up perhaps between Cultural Survival and Indian community radio projects might be a way we could get some concrete outcome from this. But again, thank you very much, and apologies to Kishle for delaying a little bit the start of the next panel.
Thank you. Yes. So thank you so much from my side to my panelists, Stella, Dr. Madhe Gowda, Bhaskar Bhuya, Rumi, and Meeraji. Thank you so much for spending the time this afternoon. And yeah, your felicitation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We break now for few minutes, just a bio break till we have the other panels coming in. We have felicitated her yesterday.
I am good. Okay, if I need it. Hi, a very good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. My job is actually made much easier because of the panelists we have. And I don't want to take too much time away from what they have to say. The title of the panel is self-explanatory: violence, conflict, and impunity. I'll begin by not by throwing any statistics and data. I think we've had enough of data and statistics, the encyclopedia throwing at our faces. We know that, you know, in over 75 years, nothing really has changed for a lot of communities and people who live this country. The democratic ideals with which we had started this nation have not been fulfilled. But there are people who don't give up hope. And that's why we continue. And we are here not to really take stock of what we haven't been able to achieve, but to be able to also find a way forward. In 2012, I was traveling across Orissa, and in the Maoist camp of Sabyasachi Panda, spent a couple of nights out there. And I was asking him that, how does he enlist his cadres? Because there is barely anything for him to offer his cadres. You know, every 2 days they move from camp to camp. These are not camps that are Maoist camps, are not camps which are, static camps, permanent camps. These are temporary transit camps. They move every day. That's how many of the guerrilla movements work. And his glib answer to me was, you know, if there wasn't any state repression, we wouldn't have been able to sustain this movement, because my cadres come because the state pushes them to us. My bodyguard for those couple of nights was a young lady called Rebecca. Rebecca's story is this. She was a villager in Kandhamal, and her sister actually was on the Maoist runs. Her sister was killed in an encounter. The father was brought to the station. The father died allegedly because of torture. The brother was also died allegedly because of torture. And then Rebecca was left with absolutely no one at home. And she, for her own survival, she joined the Maoist group, not knowing. And, you know, the conversation that I've had with Rebecca about, you know, Maoist ideology, she had very little to really share about that. At least in that area, all the cadres, almost all the cadres, I remember, would attend church twice a week. So just to lay the context of what kind of area and what kind of people we are talking about. And also, it's important for you to know that the atrocities against tribals, and we are focusing only on tribals now, in India is barely and rarely reported, documented, or researched. So whatever number of cases that you see by the NCRB is not really a reflection of the number of cases that actually happen. And it's not just the state, not just the Indian state, but I think we as a civil society have failed them. There are various reasons of why these atrocities happen. It's not like people just go in and commit atrocities or alleged atrocities. But the founding fathers of the Constitution knew perhaps of such impending threats. And that is why there was a 5th schedule and 6th schedule areas that were created in this country. So most of the mineral deposits, waterheads, forest resources are in the 5th and 6th schedule areas of the country where our tribal population reside. It is an energy hungry country. We are a 1.4 billion population. We will need more and more energy. The fact that you want air conditioning sitting in this room while having a conference on indigenous people. Now, we need to feed ourselves. Where will that energy come from? That is why the state will enter these places which are going to be, which have the energy resources, and there will be a conflict. And I think at the heart of the conflict is this, the fact that of an energy hungry country, a nation, and a population which is vulnerable, weak, smaller in numbers. But the immediate trigger for this conversation, of course, should be what has happened in Manipur and what is going on in Manipur. This morning, I watched a video with great disgust, where the mother of the accused and several women, some of whom I could recognize, actually were justifying the rape of the three women that happened on the 4th of May, saying that this is war. Now, we all know about women's body being occupied territories. But beyond that, how do we explain it? I'm not comfortable any longer to really articulate it in nice words, in poetic utterances, because it has stopped making sense to me any longer of what we are capable of, what we have been doing to women and children and to men in our own country. And I'd start, of course, introducing you to our panel. Soni Sori, delighted that she could come all the way from Bastar. And I was telling my students the other day that when we utter the word Bastar, it appears to you that everyone out there is holding a gun and everyone is against the nation. Images in which we have trapped them, images that people like me have been culpable of trapping them in because of the kind of reportage that we've had over the last 20 years from these places and people. We have only stereotyped them. Soni is an Adivasi leader who has endured arrest, torture, and sexual assault. She emerged as an advocate for tribal rights, garnering a lot of international recognition amid allegations involving SR Group's ties to Maoists and her mistreatment. Legal proceedings ensued. Her political journeys included challenges with the Aam Aadmi Party, which she had joined but has left since. Despite an acid attack and skepticism around her story, Sori persevered. In 2018, she received the Frontline Defenders Award for her ongoing efforts to attain justice for Chhattisgarh's Adivasi community. Yashovardhan Azad, Indian Police Service, retired as Special Director, Intelligence Bureau, very accomplished figure in national security and governance, has 40 years of experience in law enforcement and intelligence. He's also been the Central Information Commissioner, where he adjudicated over 8,000 RTI appeals. And he has handled counter-terrorism, security assessments, and international assignments. And the discussion couldn't have been complete without having someone to tell us why this happened, if this happens at all. And as far as I'm concerned, this happens. Professor Virginius Hakha and I always struggle to pronounce his surname. I've even asked just now, how does it pronounce? And he says, and he uttered this. Can you tell them? Hakha. Okay, and I've known him for years and I still regret that I haven't been able to pick up the exact pronunciation. Formerly professor of sociology at Delhi School of Economics, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and is currently visiting professor at the Institute of Human Development. He's the author of State, Society, and Tribes, Issues in Post-Colonial India, Economic Dualism and Structure of Class, a study in plantation and peasant settings in North Bengal. And he was also the chairman of the high-level committee constituted by the Prime Minister to study the educational, health, and economic status of the tribal communities in India in 2013. Anyone who follows tribal politics or anything to do with the tribes in India would know him and his writings very well. I'd start with Soni. to open this discussion. सोनी, आपके बारे में आपके जो स्ट्रगल है, यहाँ पे लोग जो यहाँ पे बैठे हुए हैं सबको पता है वो स्ट्रगल के बारे में, लेकिन मेरे जो क्यूरियोसिटी है वो है कि डिस्पाइट इतने एट्रोसिटीज और इतने स्ट्रगल्स, आप बस्तर जैसे जगह में where do you find the motivation and the strength to carry on the struggle? ये स्ट्रगल आप आगे कैसे ले जाते हैं? कहाँ से आपको ये स्ट्रेंथ मिलता है कि आप वहां के लोगों के लिए आप स्ट्रगल करो?
सभी साथियों को जोहार। ये मेरे लिए बहुत सौभाग्य की बात है कि मुझे इस जगह पर इस कार्यक्रम में मतलब मुझे बुलाया गया, और जिन्होंने भी ये सब चीजें किए हैं, इन साथियों को, यहाँ के स्टूडेंट को, उनको मैं तहे दिल से धन्यवाद करती हूँ। क्योंकि मतलब यहाँ जिंदल की बात आ रही थी, तो जिंदल में एक कार्यक्रम रखा गया, जिंदल में जाना है, तो कई लोगों ने हमको रोका भी, बोला भी कि आप कैसे जिंदल में जा रहे हो, आप तो ऐसे लड़ते हैं, वो सभी बातें हो रही थी। पर मेरे मन में एक चीज ये आया कि नहीं, अब जिंदल हो या अडानी हो, कोई भी कंपनी से लड़ाई उनके खिलाफ जरूर लड़ लेते हैं। इसका मतलब तो ये नहीं है ना अंदर से वो हमारे दुश्मन ही है, क्योंकि उनकी जो उससे लड़ाई नहीं है, उनकी जो कारनामा है, उनकी जो चीजों से, उससे हमारी लड़ाई है। तो इसलिए जिंदल में भी आके बात को रखना तो कोई ऐसे नहीं लगता कि हमको रखना चाहिए। जब सामने में अगर जिंदल में जो मतलब जैसे बैठ भी जाएंगे ना, हमसे सवाल पूछेंगे, हम उनकी जवाब दे सकते, क्योंकि हमारी लड़ाई सच्चाई की है और हमारी लड़ाई एक जमीन स्तर की है। तो इसलिए कोई वो नहीं है, तो हम फिर बोले नहीं, हमको जाना चाहिए। और खास करके मेरा यहाँ आने का सबसे बड़ा उद्देश्य ये था कि मतलब यहाँ ऐसे हर वर्ग के स्टूडेंट है, हर ऐसे बच्चे हैं जो यहाँ पढ़ रहे हैं, तो उनको जानना जरूरी है। वो चाहे गरीब की बात हो, अमीर की बात हो, चाहे किसी भी जाति समुदाय की बात है, पर उस जिंदल जैसे जगह में अगर यहाँ स्टूडेंट पढ़ रहे हैं तो वो बच्चे हमारे हैं, और वो बच्चों को ही इस देश को संभालना है, इसकी हर स्थिति को वो करना है। इसलिए मैं ये सोच के इस मकसद से आई। और मैं अपने बारे में तो सही बात है कि मैं ज्यादा कुछ नहीं बताऊं, पर मुझे ये लगता है कि मैं भी एक टीचर थी। टीचर से रह के मैं सलवा जुड़ों के बच्चों को कैसे अपने पास रख के पढ़ा रही थी, और कैसे हम मतलब 50-50 किलोमीटर पैदल चल के जा रहे, जो बच्चे जंगलों में ही थे, कभी वो घरों में थे भी नहीं। तो जब हमको पता चला कि ये सलवा जुड़ों के बच्चे जंगलों में हैं, घर तो पूरे जला दिया गया, उनके माता पिता को मार दिया गया, तो ऐसे बच्चों के लिए वो एक सरकारी ही स्कूल थी, उस जगह में टीचर थी। और टीचर है उस साइड, ये तो सच है कि माओवादी का उधर है, ये तो मैं नकार नहीं सकती कि माओवादी नहीं, लेकिन मैं टीचर में रहते हुए एक शक के दायरे पे मुझे अरेस्ट किया गया, वो भी एसआर कंपनी के वजह से। अरेस्ट करके क्या क्या हुआ, जो अभी मणिपुर की जो बातें आ रही है, उस चीज को मैं खुद उसको वीडियो को मैंने देखा, तो मुझे खुद पे अपने ऊपर इतने साल बाद खुद फीलिंग्स हुई। हमको भी बनताने में वही उसी तरह से वस्त्र मतलब हमारे कपड़े उतारे गए, फिर हमारे खुद के शरीरों में कैसे पत्रे डाले गए, कैसा टूसता गए, कैसे हम जेले हैं बंद रूम में। बस फर्क इतना है कि मणिपुर में खुले मतलब रोड में निकाला गया और हमको बंद रूम में वही किया गया। फिर मेरे पति को मार दिया गया, एक तरफ मेरे पिता को नक्सली ने मार दिया, मतलब विकलांग कर दिया। तो दोनों तरफ की लड़ाई में हम कैसे फंसे, कैसे फिर मैं जेल पहुंच गई। पर यहाँ तक के लड़ने की जो बात आती है अक्सर, तो हमने ये सोचा कि क्योंकि हम एक महिला होने के नाते, हमारे समाज और हमारे माता पिता हर कोई ये सिखाया गया था कि एक लड़की के साथ, औरत के साथ कुछ होता है बताना नहीं है। तो वही सिस्टम लेके मैं जेल के अंदर गई, तब कुछ हुआ था मेरे साथ, फिर भी मैं नहीं बता पा रही थी। लेकिन जब जेल के अंदर जाने से मेरी आज भी मेरे को एक चीज दिखती है कि जेल गई तो मैं रोते रहती थी, और बहुत ही मुझे सोच पड़ जाती थी, मैं कोई टीचर हूँ, मैंने गुनाह क्या किया, और मेरे बिना वजह का मुझे जेल में एक नक्सल के नाम से लाया गया, जिसका नक्सल से मेरा कोई लेना देना नहीं, कोई संबंध नहीं। पर इसलिए कि मैं जंगल में उन आदिवासी बच्चों के लिए, उन सलवाजुड़ों को बच्चों के लिए मैं शिक्षा देने की कोशिश कर रही थी, इसलिए लाया गया क्या, इसलिए मुझे लाया गया है क्या, ये मेरी सोच में पड़ गई। लेकिन लाने से पहले एक होता है ना पुलिस विभाग में कि हमने क्या अपराध किया, नहीं किया, एक सम्मान से मुझे जेल ही डाल देती, इतना कुछ करके मेरे साथ क्यों जेल में डाल दिया गया। तो जब उस समय फिर मुझे बहुत है, फिर 2 बहनें मेरे पास आती हैं, और मैं सोई थी, उठा के मुझे बाथरूम की ओर ले गई। तो मैंने बोला क्यों लेके जा रहे हो मुझे बाथरूम तक, चलो ना दीदी आप पहले चलो, हर बार खाना नहीं खाते हो, रोते रहते हो, चलो। तो बाथरूम के अंदर जाके उन लोग अपने कपड़े खोले, तो खोलने के बाद वो दिखा रहे हैं, आप क्या सोचते हो हमारा शरीर क्या सुरक्षित है, ये देखो। तो उसमें देख रही हूँ एक महिला का पूरे करंट के शॉट थे, उसकी स्थाने में पूरी दार और पूरी तरह से उसको, फिर जब उसका बलात्कार होता है तो उसके मतलब कहना चाहिए दांतों का निशान छुड़ गया। तो इतनी उसकी बुरी तरह से बलात्कार की। वो एक बहन थी जेल के, एक बहन दिखाती है वो भी इसी तरह के होता है, तो उसका निप्पल कटा हुआ ऐसे झूल रहा था और बड़ा खतरनाक, एक सर का निप्पल को पूरा काट दिए थे, खत्म है। तो मैं उन बहनों का देखी, मैं बोली अरे आप लोग तो दिखने में ऐसा, तो क्या सोचते हो, आप पढ़े लिखे हो ना, आप आपकी आवाज देश भर के लोग सुन सकते हैं, आप हिंदी बोलते हो, आप पढ़ी लिखी हो, तो आप हमारे लिए नहीं सही तो अपने लिए एक आवाज तो उठाइए, क्यों नहीं, हम कुछ नहीं बोले। तो उनको ऐसा कपड़े पहनने देखने से नहीं लगता था कि उनके साथ इतना कुछ, ये सब कैसे हुआ, तो बोले नहीं हमको जेल डालने से पहले सब किया गया ये सब चीज, तो ये शरीर लेके हम कहाँ जाएं। तो कहते हैं कि नहीं अगर यहाँ से निकले हम माओवादी के पास चले जाएं। क्यों जाओगे माओवादी के पास, नहीं जाना है माओवादी के पास, अपने समाज में रहना है अपने, क्योंकि मैं एक टीचर होने के नाते उनके साथ तो यही समझाइश करूंगी ना। तो बोले अब इस शरीर को लेके हम किसके पास जाए, हम तो जाएंगे माओवादी। मतलब माओवादी सरकार कैसे बनाती है, गरीबी और अत्याचार दोनों के बीच में जूझ के वहां जो बस्तर में जो हो रहा है उससे माओवादी बन जाते हैं। ऐसे माओवादी उत्पन्न नहीं, उत्पन्न करने वाला भी सरकार है। अगर उन बहनों के साथ ये हुआ, वो उसके मुंह से कैसे आया कि माओवादी। जैसे उदाहरण के लिए मुझे भी अगर मेरे अंदर में ये कूट कूट की वो शिक्षा मैं नहीं ली होती, लीगल सिस्टम से फाइट करने की शिक्षा मेरे अंदर नहीं, मेरे को भी कोई देर नहीं था कि माओवादी जाके बंदूक उठाना। तो माओवादी सरकार ही पैदा करती है। और आज उसके बाद मेरे जेल से रिहाई हुई, रिहाई होने के बाद खुद को जिंदा रखने के लिए हमने आम आदमी पार्टी को चुना, फिर लोकसभा का चुनाव भी लड़ा, क्योंकि मेरे खुद को जिंदा रहना था। क्योंकि ऐसे जाके मैं अपने स्टेट में रहना मेरे लिए बहुत मुश्किल था। जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने मुझे जमानत तो दे दिया, जमानत के बाद में वहां जाती हूँ तो सब बोलने लगी था वापस मत आओ, वापस मत आओ। मेरा परिवार, मेरे समाज सब बोलते हैं क्यों नहीं आओ, नहीं आप स्टेट के खिलाफ लड़े हो इसलिए आप वापस नहीं आओगे, आपको वहीं रहना होगा। तब जिंदा, तब फिर आम आदमी पार्टी के एजेंडा से मैं उतरी, लोकसभा लड़ी, उसके बाद आ रही, लोगों की नजरों में जरूर आ रही थी लेकिन मैं अपनी नजरों में नहीं आ रही थी, क्योंकि जो जन्मभूमि था वो मुझे मिला। 19,000 वोट मुझे एक ताकत दे गया और मैं उसी सरकार के पास जाके चुनाव लड़ती हूँ जहां मुझे माओवादी करके मुझे जेल डाला। ये मेरे लिए सबसे बड़ी एक जीत थी। तो उस जीत से फिर उसके बाद मैंने सोचा अब तो मेरी तो एक जीत है, लोगों की नजरों में हार जरूर, अब लड़ाई कहाँ से चालू कर। सबसे पहले मैंने लड़ना तो स्टार्ट कर दिया कि वहाँ लोगों के साथ क्या हो रहा है, जिनके साथ बलात्कार होने लगा, सो महिलाओं के साथ जैसे जैसे जब भी बता रही थी, पेद्दा गेलूर की महिलाओं के साथ, चिन्ना गेलूर के बेलम नेंड्रा की, मतलब इतने महिलाओं के साथ जब घेराबंदी करके फोर्स जब इज्जत लूट जाती है ना, उसके बाद महिला इतनी लाचार हो जाती है तो उनको लड़ना नहीं है, उन लोग की शर्मिंदगी से अपने आप। फिर मुझे मैं खुद का उदाहरण बन के बताना पड़ता था। आप लोग क्या सोचते हो, क्या मेरे साथ नहीं हुआ, क्या मेरे साथ ये नहीं हुआ, यही चीज मेरे साथ भी हुआ है, तो आपको लड़ना होगा। तो तब लोग बोलने लगे हाँ सोनी दीदी को जब शर्म नहीं, इतने पुरुषों के बीच में चल रही है, इतने जो नंबर पब्लिक के बीच में चल रही है, तो हमको क्यों शर्म है। तब महिलाएं उठ के खड़ी हुई और सीधा शासन प्रशासन के पास कपड़े लेकर जाने लगी, ये लोग हमारे साथ रात को क्या किया गया, कैसे हमारी बलात्कार होती। मतलब इतना हाल होता जो बेलम नेंड्रा का कि वह उस समय तो वो पोर्स जाती है उनके बीच, उन्हीं का दाल चावल खाती है, उन्हीं का सब कुछ खाएगी, मुर्गा भी खाएगी, वहाँ की चावल दाल सब निकाल। अंत में रात हुए तो उनके साथ बच्चे वाली महिलाओं को फेंक के बलात्कार करती, तो महिला किसको बोलेगी, किससे कहेगी। तो उस तरह से फिर वहां उतरे। फिर जैसे कुकानार की महिलाओं को जैसे पुलिस उठा के ले जाने के बाद 2-2 3 दिन रखते हैं, उनके साथ क्या होता है वो तो देश तक पता भी नहीं चलता है। तो वैसे महिलाओं के लिए उनकी आजादी के लिए कैसे लड़ना है, कैसे से ये सारी चीजें वो, मतलब मैं बस्तर में निकलने के बाद मैंने सोचा कि मैं अपने लिए नहीं लड़ूं, भले मैं लड़ूं तो मैं हमारी देश की उन बहनों के लिए, उन भाइयों के लिए वो वाली बात मतलब लड़े। लेकिन आज तक मेरे अंदर में कभी जाति प्रथा नहीं रहा। मेरी लड़ाई ये की है कि मानवता की लड़ाई, और उस मानवता की लड़ाई से ही हम कैसे लड़ना चाहिए। और दूसरी चीज है कि मैं पढ़ी लिखी होने के नाते क्रांति में अपने विचारों में क्रांति लाने की सोचती हूँ, तो मैं अपनी जुबानों से ही क्रांति हूँ बस्तर में ले आए। मतलब क्योंकि ये जो जुबान की जो क्रांति किसी का हिंसात्मक नहीं करता, ना खून नहीं बहाता, लेकिन एक बंदूक की नोक से निकली हुई से खून बहाता है, चाहे वो सरकार की तरफ से चलाए चाहे नक्सली की तरफ से लड़ाए। तो उनके बीच में हमारी लड़ाई का एक ही, दोनों तरफ से ये लोग झुकते हैं। ये तो तय है कि माओवादी भी यही कहते हैं कि भी ये कहती है सिर्फ विचार से मैं क्रांति लाऊंगी, इधर से भी इधर, दोनों के बीच में हम लोग चल के, अब जैसे जंगलों में है, जैसे सिलंगर तो आप सबने सुना होगा, सिलंगर में क्या हुआ था। सिलंगर में एक चीज ये कहा गया था कि आप कैंप क्यों लगा रहे हो, हमसे पूछो, पेशा कानून की बात कर रहे हो और इधर पेशा कानून है, ग्राम सभा है, ग्राम सभा होना चाहिए, पेशा कानून की बात आती है तो ग्राम सभा के बिना आप कैंप क्यों लगाए। इस बात के लिए लड़ाई हुई तो दिन दाड़े गोली चलाई जाए। अभी जो कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट है फिर भी गोली चला दी, गोली दिन दाड़े चली और उसमें से 3 हमारे भाई लोग खत्म हुए। एक महिला पेट से थी, उस महिला पेट के दम पे गिर जाती है तो उसके ऊपर भीड़, उनको पैरों में खून के चले गए, तो बच्चा वही उसका पूरा वो हुआ। उसके बाद एक महिला बहन भी खत्म हो जाए। तो लेकिन आज तक वो जांच प्रक्रिया में रख दिया गया, तो उसमें क्यों इन लोग कार्रवाई नहीं करते? दिन दाड़े गोली चलती है तो भी सरकार को नहीं। ऐसी ही अब जैसे एक इड़मे मरकाम थी, उसको अरेस्ट करे, अरेस्ट करके पुलिस उसको उठा के घर ले आती है, क्या थाने में लाई, थाने में 2-3 थाना में उनको घुमाए। उसके बाद उसके साथ 15 दिन बलात्कार हुआ, 15 दिन बलात्कार करके उसके बाद जेल में डाल दिया जाता है। जेल में डालने के बाद वो क्या, जब इड़मे मरकाम को जेल में डाल दिए, तो इड़मे मरकाम को मैं वहीं पर मिली थी जेल में, तो उसका जो न्यूट्रल से बाहर उसे नाली जैसा नार जैसा निकलता था, तो हमको बोलती थी ये देखो मेरे साथ है, उसको इसको ब्लेड से काट देंगे। जेल में कहाँ मिलेगा ब्लेड और ये सब, तो हम बोलते थे आज से अंदर कर। तो उसके बाद उसको हम लोग लड़के अस्पताल भेजे। मतलब इस तरह से महिलाओं के साथ भी वहां पर इतनी हालतें
सोनी,
होती हैं।
हम दोबारा आएंगे इसके बाद, इनसे सुनते हैं हम, ताकि चर्चा हम जारी रख पाए, ठीक है? What we've understood from her, of course, is that, she's kind of been dogged in her resistance, without giving in like most people did, like the story I told you of Rebecca, who joins the left wing extremists. She refused to do that, and she continues to, motivate her people out there in Bastar by saying that, we must take the fight forward. I am, of course, almost cynical to a point that till what point do we take this struggle? For how long? And that is something that, that I have not been able to really grapple with. That we talk about keeping our head strong and doggedly fighting. But fighting what? What are we fighting? What are we up against? We're up against the might of the Indian state, and which is not going to be easy. But I'm going to ask Mr. Azad, leave Sonia's story, because there are several such stories, not just her story. She's just a representative of it. We know that there is a problem in the way the state is perceived by the civil society. And atrocities do happen. So there is, it's no point being in denial of that. But what I want to understand, a more academic understanding, is that what empowers the police to turn against their own citizens, and who they are supposed to protect, actually, and who grants them the impunity. Because otherwise, if there was, who is the police accountable to? Because the police should be accountable to the Constitution. I don't see the police being accountable to anybody except the politician. So, with your long years of being in the force, and of course being, in extremely important policy-making decision, if you can throw some light on what empowers the police.
First of all, let me thank you for calling me here. I understood what I am up against when you invited me and when I saw the topic, and yet I volunteered. The reason is, in my 40 years of service, these allegations have kept coming. And these allegations are not only here, but all over the world. Now, on World Indigenous Peoples Day, it is natural that both sides should be expressed. In fact, I think the theme this time is that youngsters should be agents for change. And so I think things will change. In fact, it's my opinion that a lot of things have changed. But we can talk about that since we are only focusing on violence, unfortunately. Number one, my cadre is Madhya Pradesh. I have been to Bastar many times. As a policeman, when I was being inducted in Madhya Pradesh, we were taken to Bastar. We were there for about 3 days. Then later, a number of times for Prime Minister's security arrangements. And later, when I was in the IB, when I went to see the Salva Judum camps that MS Soni Suri is talking about, and also some of the allegations. There is no denial at all that incidents like this happen. But to say that it happens on a regular basis is ridiculous, impossible. There are still, IPS officers worth their salt who will not allow any. There are only two things we fear in our district. One is a communal riot, and one is any kind of exploitation or death in a police station. You shiver. It's not easy. Now, I'm not going to go into the allegations, what had happened. There were cases in Bastar where many of these groups like SR were paying money to the Naxalites through certain people. Good, bad, ugly.
So Azad, I'll just interrupt you.
Yeah.
I mean, because we are, it's going to be such a squeezed discussion. I mean, this is a discussion for an entire day. I mean, I am saying that I don't want you to tell me about SR, about Maoists. Let's not get there. I am just saying that, you know, you said that you started by saying that there is no denial that atrocities happen. Let's say even one atrocity is happening. Even one atrocity is not supposed to happen.
I agree.
Everyday atrocities don't happen. Let's agree. Let's agree that every day doesn't happen.
Since you allowed a long time on a tale of atrocities, I thought it was only important for me to contest that.
Okay, right? No, so let me agree that atrocities don't happen.
I'm coming to that, but you have to give me time.
No, I'll give you time.
I'm sorry.
All I'm saying.
I'm sorry. If you call me here, I think you should give me an opportunity to speak.
No, I am.
No, Professor. Please. Professor, I don't agree.
I am saying that what empowers the police.
I'm a cop. I know my rights. I've spoken in thousands of seminars. I need my right to speak. I'm coming to my point, and I'll come eventually.
Please do.
Thank you. So my first point is that we are ashamed of it. Absolutely. In my 40 years of life, I haven't seen anything like this. I was a DIG of 4 districts. Never anything of this kind happened. Never there was a complaint also. Fine, it has happened in Basta. Let me give you the other side. It's a kind of a competitive violence which is taking place. Our cops who are there in those years, they don't love being there. They don't have time for rapes because they're dying of malaria. They're dying of snake bites. They're dying of malnutrition. They're committing suicides. The kind of torture that they go through routinely at the hands of Naxalites will shudder you. You will not be able to see them. The kind of mutilation of their bodies is being done by them. It's something really out of the blue. Now, let me tell you, terrorism or this kind of Naxal activities, which is against the state, which is against the democratic principles of the state, brings together a kind of a violence which is untold. And therefore, brutalities come both sides. That's true. I agree that whenever there is violence done from one side, the reprisal is even more harsh. So in the Naxal region, it's a question of, the other day, 11 of the policemen were bombed alive. Because there are bomb craters inside those shelters which blast when the forces go. So this is, but let me tell you one thing, the good side. The Naxal violence has really come down so considerably now that it remains in certain pockets only of Chhattisgarh, Odisha corner. There is no longer that red corridor we are talking about, and Jharkhand. Today, the security forces and the district administration has moved right up to Abujmar. The schools are there. The mobile towers which are being blasted by the Naxals, they are still surviving. PHC primary health centers are there. And now the Eklavya schools are functioning. So there is some kind of movement. So I would say, yes, the violence is there. And there should be stricter action against the policemen, definitely. But the Naxal violence is so brutal that it invites reprisals. And I think this is a time when negotiations are important. And I still feel there is time for negotiation, and there is a time they can come together, as it happened in Nepal, as it happened in many other places. This is only about the Naxal area.
Thanks. Professor, let me ask you something that you once told me, that how the dynamics in the tribal areas of peninsular India versus the Northeast India completely changed. The peninsular India, the tribals from, that people like Soni Sori, now they are in the heart of India. No one would ever contest their Indianness. They are Indian. Whereas the people living in the northeast of India have always been seen as not Indians, closet Chinese, they are Mongoloids, they are. So we sent the army to the northeast to be able to protect the geographical territory of India, not necessarily protect the people living out there. But we will not send the army to the heartland of India because that would embarrass us. Now, what happened over the years is that the tribals in the northeast of India have been able to empower themselves far more. Today, even today, what is happening in Manipur, there's one community pitted against the other. One is a tribal community, the other is a non-tribal community, but both indigenous. But both have the agency to even pick up arms in front of the state forces and fight a pitched civil war against themselves. Ethno-nationalist sub-assertions in the entire region out there for years have had agency. But in the peninsular India, the eastern India, the tribals have lost agency more and more. Can you explain this shift?
Thank you. It's an interesting question. Let me put it like this. If you really look at today, Northeast India and the Peninsular India, probably we'll find that Peninsular India is the sea of poverty, illiteracy, malnutrition, and things which are associated with it. Northeast, if you look at all the social development indicators, they are almost the same level as the upper strata of Indian society today. This is largely because of the fact, or basically say, if Northeast was a military state or security state for almost, let's say, 6 decades or 7 decades or whatever you say, a peninsular India was an area of development. And all through the 1950s to almost today, you find that this is the sea of development. That's the paradox. Despite paradox, you find that the tribal people or indigenous people did not have the benefit of those development. And Northeast, despite the fact it was a military or security state, for what is an enigma that the social development indicators is extremely high. So to say the security state, in the sense, what is it that really accounts for the Northeast? And what is it that accounts for a different scenario at the mainland India? Is something really we need to think about it. And it's precisely because the state failed, state development failed in peninsular India, that I think the entry of Naxals has become very acceptable. Let's not deny that. I think initially the people really accepted Naxals because they thought that they are going to rescue them from the kind of oppression and exploitations that the tribal people in the peninsular India were really going through. There's no doubt about it. It's a different matter that later, the kind of war that really happened between the state and the Naxals and tribal people were caught between the two things. That's a different matter. And therefore you find that the reason as to why I find is that Northeast, of course, I think is closer to international border. The insurgency groups can really work. They had a lot of supplies. We can't really expect that kind of things, let's say in Peninsular India. You are actually in a way confronted with all the other states. And therefore, I think despite the fact that even then it has really taken so many years now, it's only of late that you find that they're receding. So the violence has been there. But I think we have also to look at the violence, not only in a very narrow sense of the physical violence. I think even Peninsular India, there has been much more violence with respect to the socio-cultural other dimension. It's a violence of a very prolonged, protracted deprivations that has really been going on. So that's the kind of violence that you find. It is not a spectacle. In the Northeast, you find a spectacle. You see, in the sense the violence is a spectacle. In a sense, Naga insurgency or National Socialist Council of Nagaland and the police and being killed, etc., etc. So I think the violence as a spectacle attracts us very much, and we feel very strong about it. But there are everyday violence that has really goes on, and that doesn't really catch the attention of ours. And this is what we find in the heart of India. I think there's the everyday violence that is going on, not only in terms of deprivations of the land, the forest, the resources. You cannot think of the tribals outside of the land and the forest, but you find the forest, in land is being acquired. There are people who are moving into the tribal areas, taking away their land by fraud and other kinds of means. The forest, which was their dwelling place for a long period of time, from the colonial period onwards, you find as to how through the legislations, you actually make them illegal occupants and illegal or infiltrators and so on. In fact, Simona has a very important documents book that she has done on it. So these are the kind of things. So I think the violence we have to really look at, and also you find that as far as the Northeast is concerned, you find that the violence has just receded, but now it has become between two communities. Otherwise, invariably, it was between the state and the people. And it was largely self-determination movement. Even people who wanted that, what is called that they are being deprived, like the Bodos or the Tripuri tribals, etc. They thought that that is the best way in order to get certain kinds of niche for themselves. And they managed to get it. Although you find that the Bodos will be what? It will be very small in population. And even today, in Bodo land, you find, I think, is that 26% of the total population in the 4 districts. The rest, 74 or 75%, will be the non-tribals. So you can give autonomous councils on the 6th schedule there. Tripuri tribals, again, they got it. And so you carved it out, although they are 32%. So these are all possible things. And my own hunch is that Northeasterners have been able to do much better because their land, their forest, and the resources were protected because of the provision of the 6th schedule of the Indian constitutions and the special constitutional status by Nagaland and Mizoram. This is precisely what the 5th schedule areas did not get. You get left it to the governor. Governor will have a discretion that he will say, he is a patron. He is someone what is called Ma-Bap, in the sense paternal, who will see as to what law passed by the parliament or state legislature is not in the interest of the tribal communities or not. But you find that there were so many acts, which every act which has been passed by the parliament has been applicable into tribal in these 5th schedule areas. So where is the governor there? So basically you find the constitution itself has failed the tribals. The constitutional provision you have given, but that has really failed the people. And when tribals, they know much more about the constitutional provision that meant for them. Whereas you find that people, you take the IS officers, etc., they don't know what are the 6th schedule provision or the 5th schedule provision. at least in the fifth schedule provision, they have no idea of what it is. What is the Tribe Advisory Council? What is the fifth schedule? What is the power of the governor? And I feel that the main problem is India has failed its people in terms of extending its constitutional provision alongside the legal provision, which are by and large protective. There has been a sort of terms of trade. There is you said that, well, these are protective mechanism, but then you have laws which are meant for the good of the people, the growth, public good. And I think that is where it has really become a problem. This is almost, in a sense, since everything is for public good, is the growth for the development, and therefore all the protective provision which has been there in the Indian constitutions or legal provisions, you just wash it out. You should do away with it. And that's exactly what has happened in the fifth schedule areas. And that's where you find a pool of poverty literacy. In fact, if any state, in any region you go, you should go to the peninsula, fifth schedule area and see for yourself that remains really, as I said, at the cost of repeating it, a pool of poverty, illiteracy, and malnutrition. Thank you.
You know, when Ambedkar was handing over the draft of the constitution, he said that we've given ourselves a fine political democracy, but the social democracy, that's going to blow up on our faces. And I think it's kind of already blown into our faces. We have failed at that. But just now, you know, rather than actually having a second round of me asking questions, I would like to open it up because there's so many people. I'm sure there'll be many questions. I would request you to not give a long statement, but limit your question to one sentence. Ask direct questions. Mention who you are directing it to. And I'll request my panelists also to keep the responses short so that we can take as many questions and have an interaction out here. So far, what I have figured out is that she was talking about a resistance, a people's resistance that should continue. I was listening to him, who says that there is hope and negotiation. He still feels that there's negotiation, even though there are, action, etc., should be taken, which should be routine. And a professor is talking about how we have failed our people. But let's hear from you now.
पहला तो मैं सर जो बोले हैं उस बात पे
हम उसके बाद में आएंगे।
मतलब कि इसमें कोई वो नहीं है कि हम लोग आपसी में सबको समझने की जरूरत है। उनका जो कह रहे थे तो उससे मैं बहुत सहमत हूँ, क्योंकि वो वाकई मतलब उस बारे में मैं बस्तर को लेके कुछ बोलना चाह रही थी।
हम एंड में आएंगे।
अच्छा,
ठीक है,
क्योंकि मैं भी चाह रही हूँ, क्योंकि मेरे को इस बात की सहमति है कि उनके साथ अगर हमारा ये बात हो और वो चीजें तीसरा बात उनके लिए जाए कि क्या हो रहा है वास्तव में, तो ये बहुत कम मौका मिलता है। लेकिन क्योंकि उनका जो अनुभव है मैंने सुन लिया, और मेरी जो है वहाँ क्या स्थिति, क्योंकि हर वर्ग के जो भी अधिकारी बन के जाए ऐसा नहीं है, सब गलत नहीं होते हैं, पर ये सरकार उसको गलत नीति में कैसे उतारती है ये समझना होगा।
ठीक है, हम वापस आएंगे इसमें। ओके, यू यस।
The way you delivered your tale of violence, to me, had a certain connotation of troubling violence implicit within it. In some ways, it seemed that the apparatus tended towards dehumanizing the other. So my question to you, sir, is: do you believe, as a member of the apparatus, is the state inevitable? And do you believe that people like Ms. Sori and other people like her, do you think that from their perception, the state inevitable?
Fighting insurgency is a serious business. And in fighting insurgency anywhere in the world, there are a lot of actions which are taken which should not have been taken. And this fault is accepted by everyone. I admire and respect women like Soni Suris, but I also admire and respect fighters in the field who are fighting the Nakshals. I will never be on the side of Nakshals who are against democracy, who are against nation, who are against anything of, stability. They are bombing schools. They are bombing health centers. They are bombing mobile towers. They are leaving mines. Is it all because of government repression? There is no government in that area. is a complete neglect. I totally understand and appreciate. But there are 30% officers, collectors, and SPs who are doing great jobs. The tryst with the tribes. This was Prabir Krishna. In fact, I wanted to talk a lot of things, but there's no time. How should we look at development? How should we look at social impact analysis? What should we do with our environment impact analysis? What should we do with our sample surveys? How to judge whether the tribals have come up to a certain standard? But anyway, since we're talking only about violence, so be it.
Yes, sir.
But that's an old disease. I was asking whether we can have a truth commission for the Northeast. Do you think it might create the possibility of a different kind of dialogue? Otherwise, your scripts are frozen. And they froze a long time ago. Is there a possibility, you think, that an independent truth commission can open up this area to a different kind of conversation? I mean, people like Walter Fernandez and all are trying some of these things. But the question is, how far do you think it can go? Or are we going to be frozen into stereotypes?
Yeah,
Both of you.
You first.
So you can come on always with exciting questions. I think a little in the Northeast it's very difficult to bring a kind of people together to have a dialogue other than the civil societies, activists and civil society organizations. I think there is a hardly any sort of exchange of ideas among them. You have this Northeast, this is all government construction. So people think that this is Northeast, so they have a lot of what is called conversations among them. To my mind, that's really a wrong nonsense. So it's only when you find region as a whole, they really come together. Otherwise, each one of them are in their own world. I feel that given this kind of an incident that's really happening, particularly in Manipur, what we have seen, I think that there is always a possibility. And here probably what you can think of this problem is there's of course the state of Manipur, Tripura, and Assam, because that is where you find a dominant and non-dominant people really exist. For a state like Nagaland or Mizoram, probably, or even Arunachal or Meghalaya, probably that may not necessarily be the case. But in terms of opening, you are saying opening it up, I think there is a need for it. Who will take this initiative? I don't know. But there's a possibility, and I think it's this truth and reconciliation, to my mind, is the right direction. In the right direction, sir.
I think it can be done, though I also agree that in some places, the battle lines are absolutely frozen. If you look at Manipur, I mean, each side has a genuine grievance. How do you resolve it? I mean, there's hardly any area for negotiation left. So, I would say in Nagaland, for example, I mean, the Nagalim, and this is my batchmate Ravi, who was the interlocutor and who didn't succeed. The question is of sovereignty, the question is of flag, which is not acceptable, but also acceptable informally, because the talks are still going on. There are things which are very, very important. For example, what has happened in AFSPA. I think they have a right to know. People have a right to know. I know when I was in the Information Commission, I asked for a detailed report of an encounter, and the government didn't want to give it. Finally, I gave a notice to the Home Secretary. So Supreme Court lawyer came, they delayed it till I retired. And of course, then it was settled. So there are some very, very serious issues in Northeast. But I would say that negotiation is possible. The truth which you're talking about will not come out. So you get my point, what I'm saying. Well, I mean, torture is both sides.
I know that language. Let's move a bit beyond. Torture does something to the psyche. And that's happened ever since Ranjit Gupta and gang. My roommates were tortured as Naxalites. so I can vouch for what they did. But the question is, how do you open up beyond the stereotype of presentations?
For that, you need somebody like a Bapu who is not here. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, I would say still then you try through a man like Gadkari, who's even accepted by the opposition leaders. At least he can give a call for a kind of a sagacious coming of people. That is the only way to do it. Otherwise, I don't think it's possible within this bureaucratic system or this system which refuses even to remove the chief minister, who's openly become useless for both sides, also the Maitis and also the Kukis. So in that respect, I think it's a doomsday.
कि मतलब सच की एक कमेटी बननी चाहिए, पर वो सच की कमेटी अगर जांच कर भी ले जमीन स्तर से पूरी सच्चाई के साथ, फिर कोर्ट भी जाएंगे तो कोर्ट में भी वो होता है। तो मेरा आप सबसे यही सवाल है कि सच की सरकार आएगी कब? जिस दिन सच्चाई की सरकार बनेगी तभी उस सच का भी सम्मान होगा और उसके बाद उस सच का महत्वपूर्ण होगा, अच्छा होगा। सरकार में ही हम पूरे कठपुतली टाइप का बनना दिया गया, तो सरकारी में ही सच्चाई नहीं है तो फिर हमारे सच कहाँ से ढूंढे? सच तो सरकार की इस पे है ना, तो उसके बिना होगा ही नहीं। अगर वहाँ सच्चाई के एकदम उस टाइप के सरकार चले तो कहीं ना कहीं जरूर ये होगा। तो फिर ऐसा तो संभव नहीं, क्योंकि इसलिए हम कह रहे हैं कि हम उस सच्चाई के साथ चले। जैसे उदाहरण के लिए हम खुद टॉर्चर हुआ, सब कुछ हुआ हमारे साथ, पर हम एक शिक्षित थे कि संविधान को तहत लड़े, तो यहाँ तक वे आज भी मेरे को न्याय नहीं मिला, क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट में मेरे जो गुप्तांगों से पत्र निकाला गया, अभी आज पढ़ी है, पर हमने बोला इस लड़ाई के चलते हम हमारे लिए नहीं, हमारे अपनों के नहीं लड़ पाएंगे। तो सच्चा है वो रहने दो, इतना काम में अपनों को लड़े। तो सच की लड़ाई के लिए जीतना है तो सरकार को ऐसा लाना पड़ेगा, और ऐसे सरकार में भी ऐसा व्यक्तियों को बैठनी पड़ेगी जो सच्चाई का पूजा करता हो और सच को जानता हो, सच होता क्या।
You know, for people like me who've kind of covered violence, one of the cliches that we lived with, which was a lazy, excuse, but lazy excuse. Now, lazy and excuse doesn't work. Okay, I mean, it's basically an excuse. Is that in conflict and violence, truth is the biggest casualty. So, getting the truth out is going to be difficult, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Because that's exactly what we do. People like us, we do. We know that one story reporting a story won't necessarily change the situation, but we approach that with a sense of naive idealism that perhaps one day it will. And I guess that's how they survive. That's how I survive. Ruchira first, and then I'll come to Swami.
No, I wanted to hear more from Ms. Sodhi. I want to hear about resilience, survivors agency, and more about her story.
But the story is going to be very long, Ruchira. So that's why you have to have a very pointed question.
No, but
because we
Ms.
don't
Sodhi-
have the space. I don't have the time then. So what you do is that then you can meet her after the session and listen to her story. I shall still reserve my privilege of the chair, and I'm going to say that we'll stick with the questions first and then come to the story. Then we will leave the thing open, and whoever, because I have a time I'm supposed to end at 4:30 according to your time. So I am at 4:21. But I have business to attend. Soumya.
Yeah, thank you. मेरा सवाल मैं हिंदी में पूछने वाली हूँ, and this question is to आजाद जी. आप बताए थे कि पुलिस बहुत कठिन परिस्थिति में काम करते हैं, खास करके नक्सल वायलेंस को लेके, और नक्सल वायलेंस बहुत ब्रूटल है, बहुत बड़े गंभीर तरह के टॉर्चर वगैरह होता है, और उसके लिए फिर रिप्राइजल्स होते हैं, और मगर कहीं पे एक पावर डिफरेंशियल्स है, ठीक है, और उस पावर डिफरेंशियल्स को लेके मैं ये जानना चाहती हूँ कि जब रिप्राइजल्स होते हैं पुलिस के तरफ से, क्योंकि नक्सल्स ने बहुत टॉर्चर किया है, बॉडीज को, पुलिस के शरीर को म्यूटिलेट किया है, उसमें औरतों के शरीर के ऊपर बलात्कार क्यों होते हैं, ये मैं जानना चाहती हूँ. How is that a part of the reprisals? Why are women's bodies a part of the reprisals by the police against Naxals in that violence?
Where is the allegation of reprisal of the rape after catching an action?
No, you were talking about there are bound to be reprisals. So I'm asking, how do we use this understanding of reprisals in the context of
I'm sorry, once again, ma'am.
rapes?
देखिए, मैं
Can I just continue with one short question and then you can. The related question that I would really like to understand is how many police have actually been convicted of any kind of custodial rapes? I would really like to. Thank you.
as I recall, हिंदी में बोलूं या अंग्रेजी में? हिंदी में, हाँ. पुलिस कस्टडी में देखिए, एक तो मैं पुलिस का नुमाइंदा नहीं हूं, मैं 10 साल पहले रिटायर कर चुका हूं और आजकल ज्यादा पुलिस के खिलाफ ही बोलता हूं, लेकिन आपकी जानकारी के लिए मैं ये बताने को तैयार हूं. ऐसा है कि जितने, अगर आप सांख्यिकी को देखें तो सांख्यिकी में पुलिस के कस्टडी में जो हत्याएं हुई वो बहुत कम है, बहुत ही कम है, मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं. और एनसीआरबी का अगर आप फिगर्स देखिए, वो जो टोटल फिगर्स हैं पुलिस कस्टडी में, वो प्रिजन्स के हैं. प्रिजन्स पुलिस के अंडर में नहीं आता है. पुलिस कस्टडी का मतलब पुलिस की अभिरक्षा में, पुलिस के थाने में कितने मौतें हुई हैं, वो बहुत कम हुई हैं. और उसमें भी पुलिस को जिसमें कन्विक्शन मिला है, कुछ तो क्लियर केसेस थे जो कि बीमारी के थे वगैरह वगैरह इसके थे, लेकिन जिन केसेस में हुआ है उनको पुलिस को 10-10 साल और 12-12 साल की सजाएं मिली. जहां तक रेप का सवाल है, पुलिस कस्टडी में बहुत ही कम केसेस, और मैं आपको बड़े ही संवेदनशीलता से, बड़े ही संजीदगी से बताना चाहता हूं, और कल मैं आपको वाकई भेज दूंगा, नहीं होते हैं रेप पुलिस कस्टडी में. आप मेरी बात मानिए, मैं यहाँ के जो यंगस्टर्स हैं उनको ये बताना चाहता हूं, नो दिस साइड, दिस इज नॉट अ नॉर्म. You know, it may have happened to some activists. I'm not denying that, but to say that it happens on a regular basis is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I hold no brief for any kind of police because I criticize them the most. तो मैं आपको बता रहा हूं, फोकस बदलिए. अब एक जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन आपने पूछा था कि किस तरह के रिप्राइजल की बात हम कर रहे हैं पुलिस द्वारा. जब पुलिस में जैसे इनकाउंटर होता है, एनकाउंटर में ऐसी चीजें होती हैं. किशले साहब ने बड़ा अच्छा लिखा है नॉर्थ ईस्ट के केस में, मैं किताब पढ़ रहा था संजय हजारिका का, कि लोन सिस्टम में पुलिस ने एक व्यक्ति को अभिरक्षा में पकड़ा और आर्मी को दे दिया, और आर्मी ने उसे एनकाउंटर में उड़ा दिया और अपना मेडल ले लिया. ये होता है. और इसलिए जब मैं था पुलिस में, मैंने कहा था किसी भी आईपीएस अफसर को गैलेंट्री मेडल नहीं मिलना चाहिए. और मैं जब बुंदेलखंड इलाके में था तो एक ही डकैत पकड़ा गया था, जो कि उसको सरेंडर करा लिया मैंने, और कुछ एनकाउंटर नहीं हुआ. तो कहने का मतलब ये है कि ऐसी घटनाएं होती हैं, बिल्कुल इसमें होती हैं, एनकाउंटर की बात होगी, सब कुछ होगी, लेकिन रेप, मैं ये बताना चाहता हूं कि पुलिस हमारे समाज की है. वो आज भी, वो पुराने जमाने में 19वीं सदी 18वीं सदी के लिए तो ठीक था, लेकिन अभी के इसमें रेप संभव भी नहीं. हो सकता है 1% में हो.
सर, मेरा भी एक सवाल है आपसे.
जी कहिए.
नहीं, आपने सही कहा कि रेप होती नहीं है, लेकिन मैं आपसे ही जानना चाह रही हूँ, मतलब ये तो एक ऐसी एक बातचीत है.
बताइए.
तो मैं एक टीचर थी, मैं अपनी बारे में बोल रही हूँ, आप मेरा जवाब दीजिएगा कि अगर मुझे अरेस्ट किया गया तो अरेस्ट करने के सम्मानी के साथ मुझे जेल भेज देना चाहिए, क्योंकि कोर्ट तय करेगा कि मुझे फांसी देना है या मेरे साथ कोई सजा देना. ये अधिकार है, यही है कानून में. लेकिन जेल मुझे अरेस्ट करके जो हाल मेरे साथ किया गया, चाहे वो मेरी गुप्तांगों में पत्र डाला, और कौन मर्द, कितने मर्दों ने मिलकर मेरे साथ क्या किया मैं जानती हूँ.
कहाँ पे किया ये?
नहीं, इसलिए
थाने में.
हाँ, थाने में हुआ है, मेरा थाने में हुआ है. अंकित गर्ग एसपी, उसके बाद जिस एसपी ने मेरे साथ किया उस एसपी को राष्ट्रपति पुरस्कार मिला.
मुझे मालूम है अंकित,
है ना. तो आप भले, आपसे एक सवाल है सर कि आप बस्तर में कितने दिन ड्यूटी किए? आप बस्तर में आपका ड्यूटी
नहीं,
थी
बस्तर में
या
मैंने ड्यूटी नहीं किया।
शायद इसलिए कुछ चीजों में, मैं ये नहीं कह रही हूँ कि आपका भी पुलिस परिवार है, पुलिस विभाग को मैं भी सम्मान
मैं
करती
पुलिस विभाग को
हूँ।
नहीं
मैं
बचा रहा हूँ।
नहीं था, लेकिन मेरे से ये आपसे सवाल है, जो हालत मैंने भुगता है, जो ताने के अंदर किस तरह से मेरे शरीर में पत्थरे डाला
आपके
गया,
खिलाफ
ये
तो आपके खिलाफ तो एक और गलत काम हुआ था कि आपके खिलाफ एक राजद्रोह का आरोप लगा था, जो कि बिल्कुल गलत है।
तो वही
ये तो
आपसे
ये
जानना था
तो ये
मुझे।
पुलिस ने जान के नहीं किया था, ये पुलिस की अज्ञानता है कि राजद्रोह कैसे इस्तेमाल किया जाता है, वो भी उन्हें नहीं मालूम।
वो भी
उन्होंने
कर देते ना सर, फांसी भी होता, मेरे
उन्होंने एक
को
आईपीएस
होता।
अधिकारी के
लेकिन
खिलाफ
मेरे साथ ये क्यों किया गया, सवाल मेरा यही था। जैसा आप बोल रहे हैं, मैं आपसे ना, आपकी बातों से मेरे को इस बार पहली बार ये चीज हो रहा है कि चीजों को मैं समझने की सोच रही हूँ, आप भी। तो ये था कि उस व्यक्ति को राष्ट्रपति पुरस्कार मिलने के बाद क्या लगता है कि एक तरफ मेरे को पुलिस वाले ये करें, उसको राष्ट्रपति पुरस्कार, वो सरकार जिम्मेदार है, मैं आपको नहीं कह रही, लेकिन है ना, तो ये तो हुआ है ना मेरे साथ।
इंडिविजुअल केसेस तो होते हैं।
मेरा सवाल आजाद जी से है, और ये सवाल बहुत सारे डिस्कशन सुनने के बाद
सवाल पूछ गया।
तो आजाद जी, मेरा ये सवाल पहले तो, जो आप पहले बात कर रहे थे और आप बोल रहे थे कि पुलिस के साथ बहुत ज्यादा दिक्कत होती है, वो वहां पे म्यूटिलेशन सह रहे हैं, वो वहां पे मॉस्किटोज के साथ लड़ रहे हैं। तो मैं ये सोच रही थी कि रेप और मॉस्किटो का जो कंपैरेटिव है, वो अपने आप में इतना दर्दनाक है सुनने के लिए,
गहरा है,
हाँ, कि मुझे समझ नहीं आया कि ये कैसे हुआ। और दूसरा, मैं ये जरूर जानना चाहूंगी कि अगर संख्या में रेप नहीं आया हो, कि कस्टोडियल रेप नहीं हुआ है या वैसे भी नहीं हुआ है रिप्राइजल में, पर आपके सामने एक महिला है जो कह रही हैं कि उनके साथ कुछ कुछ हुआ है, चाहे वो सिर्फ एक ही महिला हो, चाहे और किसी का कुछ नहीं, तो उस महिला की कहानी क्या झूठी है, वो जो सामने बैठ के बोल रही है?
क्या मैंने ये कहा कि एक कहानी
नहीं, तो
झूठी है?
वो क्या उनके साथ होना चाहिए था?
नहीं होना चाहिए।
नहीं होना चाहिए। तो that means वो अगर संख्या में नहीं आया है, तो that does not mean
किसमें नहीं आया है? वो तो आया है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कमिटी एस्टैब्लिश किया।
तो the point is कि
नहीं, what is your point? I don't understand.
you cannot make a comparative between a mosquito biting and a rape.
I never made a comparison. Did I make a comparison between rape and a mosquito bite? I think you're conflating at a different point. You know,
Can I?
It's good to be a collegian and ask questions. We used to do the same during your time, but don't conflate things which are, don't make it ridiculous.
Okay, well, can we? I right in the beginning, I made it absolutely clear that we are talking about the larger landscape of violence. Let's not be so specific. We do not have the privilege out here to get or luxury of getting so specific. That could be another topic. That's another topic of talking only about Bastar or only about custodial rape. We are talking about, in fact, what Professor was talking about is that, of this last several decades of psychological and emotional violence that the people out there have experienced. And we're talking about the agency. And I thought those were very interesting points also to discuss. So I'd invite a couple of more questions from there. I'm just going to come to you. I think she has been with the mic for some time. Yeah.
मैं ऐसे मेरा सवाल है आजाद जी से ही, इसलिए
आजाद जी के लिए और कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं।
मैं खड़ा हो जाता हूँ। I'll stand up.
You'll win an election now.
सरकार में विधि व्यवस्था देखते थे, और हम लोग जो अनुभव है उसके आधार पर मैं सवाल करना चाह रही हूँ। आपने अभी अलग बात है कि सरकारी इसमें अभी नहीं है, लेकिन आप रहे हैं। हमेशा हम लोगों के दिमाग में चलता है कि जहाँ पर भी जमीन के सवाल को लेके, जमीन अधिग्रहण के सवाल को लेके जमीन मालिक लड़ते हैं, एक के पूरा लीगल एस्पेक्ट को देखते आधार रख के, जैसे हम लोग झारखंड में बोलते हैं CMT एक्ट के आधार पर ये जमीन हमारा है, और ये 5th शेड्यूल में कहता है कि ग्राम सभा की इजाजत के बिना, अनुमति के बिना ये जमीन नहीं दिया जाएगा। तो हम लोग ये कानून को ही बेस बना के हम लोग अपना, अब जमीन हमारे मतलब मालिकाना में है, इसलिए हम जमीन नहीं देंगे। लेकिन हमेशा हम लोग इतने सालों से देख रहे हैं, जहाँ भी कंपनी वाले लोग जमीन उनको चाहिए तो वो ये कहते हैं कि नहीं, ये विधि व्यवस्था में ये लोग बाधा डाल रहे हैं, और जमीन जिनका कानूनन जमीन मालिक का अधिकार है में है, लेकिन जहाँ सरकार और कंपनी वाले चाहते हैं वहां पर विधि व्यवस्था के खिलाफ में लोग आवाज उठा रहे हैं, व्यवस्था में बाधा डाल रहे हैं, तो 353 डाल देंगे केस, और जमीन जबरदस्ती कंपनी पुलिस से अपना फोर्स लेके जाती है और जमीन कंपनी वाले को कब्जा दिला देती है। और जब जमीन मालिक सरकार पर केस करना चाहती है तो उस पर केस क्यों नहीं होता है, और ये जो जमीन मालिक अपना पूरा कानूनन राइट्स के साथ उसका विरोध करते हैं तो उन पर 353 डाल दिया जाता है और उनको जेल में डाल देते हैं। आप तो जानते हैं पहले शायद नॉन अवेलेबल था, अभी पहले अवेलेबल था, अभी तो नॉन अवेलेबल है 353। और देश में मैं देख रही हूँ कि जितने भी एक्टिविस्ट हैं अब कोर्ट के हिसाब से वो क्रिमिनल हैं। तो जानना आपसे चाह रहे हैं, तो हमारे जैसे एक्टिविस्ट में तो जल्दी से 353 लग जाता है, और हम लोग के ऊपर में तो 10-12 क्रिमिनल केस लग जाता है, और जो जमीन लेने वाले वो
उनको माल मिल जाता है,
मसीहा होते हैं। तो इस पर आपका क्या कहना है?
आप कहाँ की हैं इसमें, झारखंड में कहाँ?
झारखंड में सब जगह मैं घूमती हूँ।
डिस्ट्रिक्ट कौन सा है?
मैं रांची में भी काम करती हूँ।
नहीं, आपका डिस्ट्रिक्ट कहाँ की रहने वाली है?
मैं पैदाइश हूँ गुमला डिस्ट्रिक्ट की।
गुमला की। तो
पूरा लाइफ में
तो सुनिए ना, एक मिनट, मैं गोड्डा डिस्ट्रिक्ट का रहने वाला हूँ।
तो
और
आपका तो ज्यादा मतलब
बिल्कुल
बताएंगे, इसके बाहर भी आप
मैं और भी बता देता हूँ आपको कि अभी झारखंड में जो ट्राइबल चीफ मिनिस्टर हैं, उन्होंने वेस्ट सिंहभूम जिला से 492 एकड़ जमीन इंडस्ट्रियल एरिया को दिया है, बिना ग्राम पंचायत की सुनवाई के और बिना पैसा एक्ट को फॉलो किए। इसी तरह जो आप कह रही हैं, उड़ीसा में भी यही हुआ है, डालमिया सीमेंट को 482 एकड़ जमीन दी गई है। यही बात जो मैं कह रहा हूं, मैं टोटली आपसे सहमत हूं। सरकार के जो लैंड एक्विजिशन एक्ट में हर तरह की जो कमियां हैं, वो सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट। आज जो हमारे आदिवासी भाई हैं वो 4 चीजों में है, एग्रीकल्चर में है, पैस्टरल में है, इंडस्ट्रियल लेबर में है, और इसमें अब जो तरीका जो ग्रोथ का है, क्या हो सकता है, जो मैं प्रोफेसर साहब की बात से पूरी तरह सहमत हूं कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल की जो डिनायल है, सारी चीज और अनदेखा है, वो किया गया है। लेकिन हम अब फ्यूचर जो ग्रोथ की बात करें तो हम ये देखेंगे ना कि उनके सोशल एम्पावरमेंट और इकोनॉमिक एम्पावरमेंट के लिए हम कौन सा मॉडल ढूंढें। तो हमें किस चीज पे एजिटेट करना चाहिए? एक तो लैंड एक्विजिशन। अमेरिका में जैसे सीधा लैंड एक्विजिशन का रेट है कि 8 गुना दिया जाता है या 12 गुना दिया जाता है। तो आज अगर कम से कम हम उस चीज के लिए एजिटेट करें कि 8 गुना या 12 गुना दिया जाए तो कोई बात हो सकती है इसमें। आप देखिए कि झारखंड ऐसे एरिया में ट्राइबल लीडरशिप भी एक बहुत बड़ी चीज है। आज हमारे झारखंड में पॉलिटिकल व्यवस्था जैसी हो, लेकिन ट्राइबल लीडरशिप है, वहां पे भी आदिवासियों की जमीन जा रही है। तो इसको बचाने का क्या तरीका है? जो आपने कहा, पुलिस तो अपने मन से जाती नहीं है। पुलिस को तो ये कहा जाता है कि भाई ये जो एरिया है ये सरकारी एरिया है और ये लोग कर रहे हैं, आप ये कीजिए, और 353 का केस उसमें रजिस्टर होता है। लेकिन आप बात मानिए, कोई भी आपको मुलजिम नहीं समझता, कोर्ट भी आपको मुलजिम नहीं समझता है, क्योंकि लोगों को मालूम है कि आदिवासी भाई जो है अपने राइट्स के लिए वहां पे गए। अब इसका क्या निदान है इस समस्या का? मेरा यही कहना है कि जो मूवमेंट होना चाहिए वो स्पेसिफिक पॉइंट पे होना चाहिए कि लैंड एक्विजिशन रूल्स जो है उसमें आदिवासियों के हक के लिए कम से कम मुआवजा जो है 8 गुना होना चाहिए या 12 गुना।
मुझको लगता है कि आपके साथ, आप भी झारखंड से हैं, आप मुआवजा की बात किए हैं
जी।
तो मुझको लगता है कि आप जब इस पर बात कर रहे हैं तो इस हाउस के बाहर झारखंड में भी मिलना चाहिए, बात होना चाहिए। धनबाद में जो आपका हाईवे के लिए लोगों ने जमीन
जी,
दिया,
जी,
50 करोड़ किसने डकार लिया? मुआवजा की तो बात हम करेंगे, लेकिन आदिवासियों ने जमीन दिया, दलितों ने जमीन दिया, 50 करोड़ किसने डकार लिया?
इतना तो समय है नहीं कि 5 क्वेश्चन में मैं 2 सवाल ले सकता हूँ। She goes first. No, Mitali, let me decide. I'm the chair. Otherwise, you come and sit here and you can chair. See, I have exactly 5 minutes to go. So I'm going to wrap up within 5 minutes. And after that, you can spend as much time as you want.
Yeah, it is my turn.
She's asking.
So it's not a question, it's actually a comment. I want to draw your attention, Professor Bhattacharjee, to the question that you began this session with, which is that what is the structure, what are the structures that are allowing the kind of impunity to state machinery, police machinery, armed forces machinery in these areas? We've talked about conflict, we've talked about violence, we haven't talked about impunity.
Yeah, I was very worried about why we haven't come there.
Yes. So what I want to just say very quickly, I did a study a few years ago of Indian law and surrounding countries which have a shared colonial history similarly. And it was very startling to find that we have very similar provisions in the laws relating to the police and the armed forces and the paramilitary forces in states like Sri Lanka and Pakistan, of course, has a shared history, also Nepal, and so on and so forth. Very similar provisions in the criminal procedure laws, providing what we call impunity, but it's not really impunity. It's like state has to give sanction for prosecution, which translates into impunity because that sanction for prosecution never comes. And I've actually filed RTI applications to find out in specific scenarios how many sanctions for prosecutions have been granted for, say, custodial murder, encounter killings from in XYZ period of time. And the answer has come 0. So how does this actually translate? I just want to give an example, perhaps because it's relevant for us when we're talking about indigenous peoples. Many years ago, there was this sort of afwa, that rumor that in Kaziranga National Park, the government has issued shoot-at-sight orders. And as a lawyer, I was very intrigued to know under which provision of law.
It's a fact.
I'll just explain that. So where is the shoot-at-sight order? Because there is no such thing as a shoot-at-sight order in India. Even AFSPA doesn't allow a shoot-at-sight order. So we dug it out. And what was that order? It was basically a circular that was reiterating the provisions of section 197 CRPC. Simply reiterating it. There's no need for a government circular to reiterate a provision of a central legislation. But it was reiterated and it was interpreted by the Assam police as a shoot-at-sight order. Just a few weeks ago, a similar order has been issued by the government of Orissa relating to protected areas. And I think we should all be talking, I mean, since many people sitting here are part of the Jindal Global Law School, we should be talking about specific provisions in our legal structure, which are structural problems relating to impunity. I don't think it's about whether rapes takes place or they don't take place, whether Soni is right or Mr. Azad is right, or who is wrong, who is right. There are structural issues which we have inherited from our colonial past, and it's time we talked about them and got rid of them.
I'm happy you mentioned this. I'm happy you mentioned this. This is the, yeah, you want to, I'll ask them to respond later once you've finished asking questions. Yeah, you.
No, it's not, don't worry. Yeah, I think we do know, we do have some information about the violence especially under AFSPA and army going into Bastar and creating violence. And of course, but because this is the research interest of, I think, Professor Khaka, we know that the jails are overcrowded in the Schedule 5 states, and sub jails are full of people from Adivasi background who are incarcerated. I just wanted you to throw light on what are some of the ordinary or innocuous looking laws, or what are the ordinary laws under which the tribal members are sent to jail, FRA or maybe excise, or other laws like that we need to think about.
You want to ask? This is the last one. Okay, I'm not thinking.
And very quick question following up on structural issues. Instead of laws, I'm going to speak on statistics. So, Mr. Azad, you're asking us to believe government data from NCRB in order to
No,
say
I'm
that
not asking you to believe. I'm saying one of the standard data available
is the NCRB, and I'm
which may
saying
not be reliable.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the point I was trying to make. So it may not be reliable, and we also have films like Jai Bhim with Justice Chandru, which is inspired by his work from his previous time. So to say that custodial rape does not happen based on government's own data is a question mark. But the other statistic, if you have any that I'd like to know of, is related to the larger mosquito question. How many police officers are Adivasis themselves, or are they really outsiders going to that area?
Many.
So if you have some sort of background for different states
I'll
in
give
India.
you Parliament's standing committee report that is on mosquito bites, malaria. It's about there is a Bastaria battalion where there are the Adivasis only who are in the force. In fact, the entire recruitment of Bastaria battalion is from the Adivasis. What is there to reply? battalion है, उसमें वहाँ के tribals दिए गए, चाहे वो उड़ीसा हो, झारखंड हमारा state हो, मैं तो जाके इनको address कर चुका, ये सब tribals, आपको तो मालूम होगा।
वो तो बात करने देंगे ना तो मैं सब बता दूंगी कब क्या हो रहा है, सब चीज बता देंगे। हाँ आजाद जी, आपसे एक सवाल है, वो बस शॉर्टकट है। आप ये बताइए, एक नक्सल है, मतलब एक नक्सल की बात कर रही हूँ, वो नक्सल जीराम कांड में शामिल होता है, पूरी वो कांग्रेसी नेता या नागरिक को मारता है, वो ताड़मेटला में भी शामिल होता है। लेकिन ऐसा कैसे ये नीति है कि जब वो 100 मर्डर कर चुका है नक्सल में रह के, वो आता है सरकार के पास, तो सरकार बहुत बेहतरीन स्वागत करके सम्मान करके उसको दोबारा अपने साथ ले लेती है, फिर उसको बंदूक दे के फिर उसके बाद फिर उसी एरिया में बेचती है। जो 100 मर्डर किया है वो और 100 मर्डर करेगा, तो उसको शाबाशी देती है। जो पुलिस वाला जो किताब के और फाइट करके पुलिस बना है, उसके चप्पल घिसड़ जाते, उसको प्रमोशन नहीं होता है, लेकिन वो व्यक्ति जो नक्सली का है उसको 2 महीना में मतलब थानेदारी सब बना जाए। तो ऐसा नियम कैसे बताएंगे? अरे बन गया, मैं अब मैं बेचती हूँ आपको, ऐसा आप इतने लोगों में आप चैलेंज कर रहे हैं ना, तो ठीक है, दो स्टार उनको लग चुका है।
मॉडल किया, उसके बाद फिर वो थानेदार हो गया।
आप ना
उसका पीरियड
सर, मैं झूठ नहीं बोल रही हूँ, बदरू एक नक्सली है। सुनिए नहीं, ये इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है। बदरू आप ऐसा बोल रहे हैं ना तो मैं दिखाऊंगी
कॉन्फ्रेंस के बाद आप कर लीजिए।
नहीं हुआ है
यहाँ पे नहीं, यहाँ पर नहीं,
अच्छी बात है ना, तो बात कर रहे हैं।
I think there was a question for you.
तो आप बता सकते हैं ना हमको ऐसा क्यों होता है? तो अरे मेरे पास है, मैं तभी तो क्वेश्चन किया आपसे। बनाया था
I don't know exactly under.
मेरे को देख के थाने से भाग जाता है, आ रही है बना है, मैं बोली चलता।
Sorry जी,
I'm not an very detailed understanding of the laws, but the fact is when Adivasis really make demand, for example, you just take the Pesa. When Patalgadi movement that was really taking place in Jharkhand and some parts of neighboring states, what they were saying that this is what is there in their constitutions, this is what the Pesa says, and we want primarily this to be implemented. But the government was not interested in that. They thought that it is just going against the state. It's a kind of an anti-national or is a Naxal driven activities and so on and so forth. And a large number of them put into the jail. Now, under what clause? There are many of them have been, particularly with the coming of the, well, what is called Soren's government, they have really, but the large number of them still languishing in the jail. So that is there. So I don't know, whether basically they put it under the UPA Act, so that is one. And, huh? UAPA, that is because they think it is an anti-national activity. Yeah. So that is what the rules comes. So these are issues which are there, and sorry, Dayamani, they have faced it. They have been in jail, so they have, of course, much personal experiences of what they really go through it. I'm a more armchair academic, so I can't really say about that. But this is a fact, and this is not only that, but sometimes I feel very guilty in the sense that there's a large number of civil rights and human rights activists who have still been languishing in jail just because they have taken up the cause of Dalits and Adivasis. So it's not only a question of Dalits and Adivasis. The people who have been fighting their cause have also been languishing in jail for such a long period of time. Stan Swami passed away. Yasudha Bharadwaj got bail after a long period of time. You have, there's so many others are still there. So that's the kind of the question. So when you have rights, human rights issues, or rights of democracy or freedom or justice or fairness, is something which we have to address, and sometimes maybe we have to pay the penalty and the price.
I'm not going to take any more questions, and you can continue having conversations with whoever wants to, because people would like to leave. Our time is over, but I'll end with a slight disappointment and regret. It was about conflict, violence, and impunity. It was about what she was talking about the structural forms of which allows impunity. And I did not see us discussing that. We were focused only on one kind of violence, even though he mentioned another kind of violence. I'll give you a third kind of violence for you to think about. When we talk about protracted armed struggle, say, in a place like Nagaland or Mizoram or Manipur, Assam, levels of violence have come down. That's also because of in a classical sense, there's a fatigue of every insurgent outfit. They can survive about 15 years. The Naga insurgency was an aberration which continued for several decades. And which is kind of morphed into a more ethnic feud right now. So from the secessionist struggle, it's now moved to more against each other. So the actual outsider now has become, the insider has also become the outsider. So that's why the Kuki is suddenly the outsider for the Meitei. But there's a different kind of violence that the state unleashed over all these areas, is a violence that happens from the word peace. So what happens is that when they sign peace deals, they signed ceasefires. Now, what are ceasefires? You're basically suspending operations against the state. So the insurgent outfit and the state, they have struck a deal amongst themselves that we won't kill each other, but we can kill others. We can carry out extortion. We can kidnap, we can do anything we feel like. And so what happens is that all the violence that these terrorist outfits, and I have, Mr. Azad, unequivocally called all of them as terrorist outfits. I've not made an exception. I've not, used the nomenclature of insurgency or militant or underground, even though those outfits always said that I should be calling them underground. I never found a reason why I should call them underground. They were completely overground. Is that the state allowed them to legitimize their every single activity that they carried out against people. And against who? Against their own people. They did, whether it was in the LWA areas, whether it was in Nagaland, whether it was in Manipur and Mizoram. And I think there is an impunity there as well. It's not just we were too focused on just the role of the police. You've absolved the army entirely. Because we are not talking about, because the army does not operate in Bastar. In Jammu and Kashmir and in the entire area of Northeast, since 1958, the most absurd draconian act called the Armed Forces Special Powers Act has been in impunity is, I mean, if you talk about impunity in the hierarchy of all the various atrocities, it would be Armed Forces Special Powers Act that comes under which people have mass atrocities have happened and properly documented. These are not allegations. These are documented. The Supreme Court and various other courts, if you believe in them, have also taken cognizance of those. And I think I'd request you to actually, as you leave this room, to think about impunity more than about specific one case or two cases. There should not be even one case. I mean, we should be talking about a country, about a world where there isn't even a single rape happening, single atrocity happening, and that can happen only when we think of structural changes. I don't think so. It is about one single story. I will, but thanks so much for being a very involved, participatory audience. Mitali, I'm sorry. Please come and engage. She's going to be here for the evening, and that is why I made sure that Soni is going to stay with us for the evening at JGU, so that you all can engage. All the students out here, Soni ji, आपसे अभी वो मुलाकात करेंगे आप जैसे बोला मैंने. Okay, thank you so much. Okay.
इस जगह पे थोड़ा और बात कर लेते तो ज्यादा अच्छा था. आजाद जी की बातों से ज्यादा नहीं, मतलब मैं 2, 4, 5 मिनट का तो वक्त
नहीं 5 मिनट नहीं,
तो चलिए
1 मिनट.
लेकिन मैं देखो, जो मैं समझाना चाहती थी यहाँ की स्टूडेंट, प्रोफेसर सर, सभी लोगों को, कि बस्तर का जो लड़ाई की बात नहीं है, पूरी देश की लड़ाई है. और उसमें ये आदिवासी और नक्सल के बीच में वास्तविकता कैसे ये आदिवासी पिस जा रहे हैं, उसको मैं बेहतरीन बता के आप लोग को समझाना चाह रही थी कि वाकई इधर मैं नहीं कह रही हूँ कि पुलिस कितना परेशान है और आदिवासी कितना परेशान, सरकार कितना खुश है. ये चीज को सबको समझने की जरूरत थी. लेकिन दोनों के बीच में क्या है, इधर मरने वाला भी तो मेरी आदिवासी है. क्या वहाँ DRG आ रहे सारे, क्या मेरे लड़के लोग नहीं है पुलिस में है? और इधर से भी नक्सल मार दे आदिवासी 4 लोगों को, उधर से 8 लोगों को पुलिस मार देती है. तो इसमें कैसे उनकी पूरी मौत हो रही है ना. महिलाओं के साथ क्यों ऐसा हो रहा है, काय के लिए हो रहा है, बलात्कार जैसी चीज क्यों हो रहे हैं, किन के कारण हो रहा है, ये सारा चीजें को मैं स्पष्ट करना चाह रही थी, पर आप लोग ने वक्त नहीं दिया. उतना दूर से मैं आई हूँ और आजाद जी की बात सुन के तो और मेरे अंदर की और भी सवाल जवाब उठ गए थे कि अच्छी बात है कि फेस टू फेस बात हुई. तो नहीं तो मतलब वो रहना था ना, जो मेन चीज है कि नक्सल और इसके बीच में आदिवासी कैसे फंसे, उसके लिए हम लोग को क्या करना चाहिए थी, ये मैं आप लोग से, क्योंकि सरकार को हम कैसे समझा सकते
जो है इस कॉन्वर्सेशन को कंटिन्यू रखेंगे. एक बार ये पैनल खत्म हो जाए, उसके बाद जो भी रहना चाहता है, हम एक लॉन्ग कॉन्वर्सेशन सोनी जी से करेंगे. तो एक बार जो हमारे बाकी गेस्ट आए उनको फैसिलिटेट कर दें, एंड देन विल कंटिन्यू द कॉन्वर्सेशन. या
सोनी कैमरा कहाँ गया? आपका नाम चेयर
आपके नाम लिखा
किसी को दे सकते हैं क्या, नहीं दे सकते तो आप नहीं देंगे, बहुत बता के रखेंगे.
मैम कैमरा यशवंत